virtual world enabled by an insecure communication medium, we are moving there with the issue of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force, is now developing solutions to palliate this lack of security on the internet. Governments and their parliaments are enacting laws that guide our behaviors on the internet. Human beings we can decide not to abide with those laws, rules, and regulations. The issue of insecurity still is at stake. Luckily, mathematics can address the issue of insecurity through encryption. So what is encryption? Ladies and gentlemen, simply put, encryption is the process of disguising a message in such a way to hide its substance, scramble the text, make it unreadable. To bring back the disguise test called cipher test back to a plain test is called decryption. Encryption, decryption, encryption algorithms known as cipher, cryptographic keys fall under the umbrella of what is known as cryptography and is defined by Bruchner as the art and the science of keeping messages secure. The art and the science of keeping messages secure as cryptography. There is another discipline related to cryptography, and it's named cryptanalysis. It's the art and the science of breaking a cipher text or the disguised messages using mathematics to break the cipher text is called cryptanalysis. The branch of mathematics encompassing both cryptography and cryptanalysis is called cryptology. This little lecture is necessary for our younger ones who are here. I'm sure they don't really understand what is cryptography, encryption. Gathering here is not related to the scientific aspects or the mathematical aspect of cryptography, rather the artistic aspects of cryptography, which aims at solving problems. Now, the algorithms behind encryption is based on mathematics. It's hard. And among us here, one of ours is specialized himself in that area. I name Professor Christ. His PhD is in that area. The artistic part has two elements: how to design the cryptographic protocols and how to use those cryptographic protocols. There are several cryptographic protocols implemented in computer applications. We have authentication mechanisms, digital signature, which is very secure, digital cache, secret key exchange, time stamping, how to flip coins, how to play poker games, sign contracts, digital election, you name them. Again, we are not not interested in that part, but how to use it. And the level of our privacy depends on the strength on the cryptographic key. It's a piece of information, usually a string of numbers or letters that are stored in a file, which, when processed through cryptographic algorithms, encrypt or decrypt messages. There are two types of cryptographic keys: the secret key and the public cryptographic key. The secret key, to exchange it, You and I can hide ourselves somewhere and we exchange that key. If you are in Japan, you can use it and send me a secure or an encrypted message. But the issue with that is when the key is compromised, the communication is compromised. There's no privacy. How will I know that a friend of mine is in Japan, his key has been compromised? So all messages I'm sending there will fall in the hand of a wrong person. So public key cryptography was invented. It is a pair of keys. One which is public, put in the public domain, and they know that it is linked to me or to whoever developed that key or generated that key. And I have the second part, which is private and is known to the owner of the public key. So when you send me a message, it's only with the private key that I can decrypt that message. If eventually, or by mistake, you delete your original text and you have the encrypted text, there is no way you can decrypt the message unless you have the private key. While using cryptography to ensure privacy in the virtual world, bad guys out there commit their crime and deeds, use it and use cryptography to hide themselves. I'm sure you know about ransomware. Well, it uses cryptography. And they hide themselves, their deeds using cryptography, and it's difficult to know what the message contains. This is a great concern to national security all over the world. Countries like Russia, China, North Korea, Iran prohibited the use of cryptography by their citizens. Countries like USA, Canada, they have minimal restrictions. European countries, they are moderate. And there are some countries where internet is at infancy. They don't have any rules at all. In Ghana, we have laws that guide our electronic transactions, our data privacy. It is clear that we are using cryptography. We are supposed to use cryptography. To which level? Those tests are not clear about it. NITA is the certifying body in Ghana. Well, look, we have a representative of NITA among us. Today he will tell us how the rules are in Ghana. In fact, I don't know much about it. I'm also here to learn more. Ladies and gentlemen, as the tendency is to control the strength of the cryptography for the national security, what should be our position in Ghana in terms of the use of cryptography? I wish you a successful workshop. Thank you.
A round of applause for Mr. Marcus once more. Mr. Marcus, thank you so much for such enlightening information. It's now the time for us to have our keynote address by Mr. Eric Akumia. Mr. Eric Akumia happens to be the past president of ISOC. He is also the operations director of NITA. He is also the GH Domain Registry lead at Ghana Internet Registry. With a round of applause, let's welcome Mr. Akumia.
Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me just make a correction. I used to work at NITA with Solomon as Director of Operations, but I no longer work there. And when I was there, I was lead for the .gh registry. I mean, there's a process to transfer the registry from the current location, and I happen to work on it, but I no longer do all these things. So I'm just a common citizen now. I lecture at UCC e-commerce, and I also run a small consultancy called AIB Consulting. So, good morning, everyone. I think the stage has been set for today already, and I don't have to add too much, but to just bring us to bear on the real reason why we're here. I think it's not about the technology, but it's about the policy debate. But let me just imagine you live in a place with houses, and none of these houses have a door, or even when they have a door, they don't have keys. I mean, what kind of, do you feel secure? Will you feel secure in such a place? If some crazy armed robber decides that I can bomb in because everything, the doors are open, there are no keys, you know, then your life is at risk. And that's what we're trying to do by migrating into this digital world. It's a big place. There are different kinds of structures existing. But all these things are so open that anybody can just, you know, enter anywhere, take any information, try to even mimic somebody and do some transactions, and nobody can hold that person. So what this whole thing is about is that how do we transition into this digital world and ensure that people can have locks, that they can lock their doors and create a space for themselves. We're talking about personal data here. If I have my own personality, somebody can actually come and steal that personality and actually do a transaction, and people will think that it is me who have done that. And of course, you can just imagine the kind of situation that we find ourselves. You want to acknowledge it? Yeah, so let me just acknowledge the presence of Honorable Dr. I wanted to add a Dr. Honorable Sam Jatta George, ranking member for Communications Committee. You are very welcome. So what I'm saying is, for us to understand why we need to have encryption and why we need to be able to define our spaces, we need to have keys. And Marcus talks about keys here. He says, in the public key infrastructure, you have two keys. If I want to give people access into my house or my room, I can advertise my private key. But it is me who have to open the thing with my, public key. I can only open people into my space by my private key. So it means that I can create a space in cyberspace and be able to control that space so long as I have encryption or a key to be able to allow people in and not to allow people to enter my space. So encryption, as we all know, or we've heard today, is doing so many things. Our credit cards, debit cards, without encryption, it will not be safe for us. And We see a lot of things, our national ID, and so forth and so on. But everybody who applies in this space is looking at 4 principal things which will make him comfortable. The first one is what we call confidentiality. If I want to have a conversation with somebody in this space, how can I be sure that somebody cannot eavesdrop and be able to carry that secret information? We all see what sometimes the press do when there's some kind of communication before you see it's in the press, and it's like, how did it happen? How did it happen? So it's all about confidentiality. How can you keep confidentiality within the cyberspace such that people, even when you eavesdrop, you will get garbage? Because whatever you hear doesn't make sense. The second thing is about integrity. I mean, if somebody doctors something and passes it on to you, and you don't know that it's been doctored, how are you going to feel if you are confronted with the reality that, look, this is not what was originally sent? I recall when we were in the university. Now, people post, some kind of notice there, and then some mischievous person adds just 1 or 2 letters, and it means something else. So what it means is that if you cannot make sure that within this, space, anything that you want to send across to somebody is not doctored, then we have a challenge. The third one is authentication. The ability to say that it is only this person, I'm sending it to Kofi Mensah, and that it is only Kofi Mensah that should be able to receive that document and open that document. And then finally, non-repudiation. What does it mean? It means that if I send something and there's trouble, I cannot deny that I didn't send it, because there should be some kind of footprints or marks that indicates that it is you. You can't say it wasn't me and go free. So these are the things that encryption seeks to, correct or make people feel confident so that they can use the internet securely. Now, having said all this, the issue is about your privacy versus national security. That's the theme for this year. If I can use all these technologies to create a privacy space, must somebody be able, under the guise of ensuring that the whole country in which we stay in within the cyberspace is safe, have access to view my documents or walk in at any time and question me for anything? And that's what this is about. The people who have been assigned to ensure that this country is safe must have a certain authority to be able to determine whether there are some bad people wanting to do something against this country. And we're talking about all these jihadists and the issues around our borders in the north, the east, and the west. And it's all about communication. And up until recently, some of these encryption keys were deemed to be something that people could not have access to from the US, okay? Because if you have access, then there's a Solomon who said that you can hold information private so that the authorities who need that information cannot have it. So what are we talking about? Today, it's about the debate. Okay, and this debate has been going on. Solomon rightly puts it, he says that, look, it's not been now since the 70s. So what is the balance that we should have between people having their own privacy versus the issues of state in terms of national security? It has been raging for a long time. And of course, now that the internet is becoming more citizen-centric and people are being more, focused about having their own space, the debate then becomes more crucial than ever. So for us in Ghana, we need to craft stuff or laws, and I'm happy that our Honorable Sam George is here to throw a little light on this area in terms of what must we do to safeguard the emerging or the evolving cyberspace. And I mean, how can we have a balance between the privacy issue and the state issue? I know we've had a number of problems with US governments having problem with Apple and other people because of the encryptions that they put on their system. And it's got to times that, I mean, Apple have not actually given access to privacy because there are privacy laws and that, and so forth. So it's a very dicey debate. And this morning, we have excellent panels who will give us their perspectives and tell us, and have a debate so that we can make up our minds which way we will be going in this country. And of course, these are great experts, and I believe that today we will have a very important discussion. I will want to end here, but I think that the stage has been set for us to have the panels, and I believe that at the end of the two panels, we will have a clear sense of where we should be going and how Ghana can stand out in terms of setting these things rightly so that, in future others will come to see us and see what we are doing. Solomon said, you see, we always wait for people to do and we consume, but perhaps in this case, we want to set the stage and get people to also consume. And I'd like to end on this note. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akomia. So ladies and gentlemen, we are going to the first section of our program. But before that, when you look up all our banners, we are looking at the internet is for everyone, right? So we're saying that the internet is for everyone. What do we mean by this? The internet is for you and I. So we need the engagement, communication, as he rightly said, to ensure confidentiality, integrity, authentication, and non-repudiation. We need stakeholder engagement. So our section, the first session we're going to have, the question that we are supposed to digest is, which is more important? Which is more important? Is it online privacy or encryption? So the moderator for this session is no other person than Mr. Eric Akomia. So on that note, Mr. Eric Akomia, you have that. Panel.
Thank you very much. So we have come. Yes. Yeah, so we have, let me just quickly run through the panelists again. We have Professor Kesa. He is an authority in all this encryption business, and we're happy to have somebody like him in our country, one of the foremost international people in that respect. Then we have Nicholas Learning Anand Ajay, the Youth IGF. Can you hear us, Nicholas? If you can hear us, just wave.
Hello, I'm online.
Right, so he's online. Then we have Emmanuel Gadasu, sorry. He's a privacy expert, and he will be here to also throw more light on this debate. We have Kweku Sampa Mainu from Kweku Sapon Mainu, sorry for my church, from CERT-GH, which is the Computer Emergency Response Team, the National Computer Emergency Response Team at the Cybersecurity Authority. Then we have no other person than our very honorable Samuel Nate George. He's a ranking member for the Communication Select Committee of Parliament, and he has been very active in the space, contributing to the issues around ICT. So here are your panel, and we'll quickly go in. Now, the topic is, which is more important, online privacy or encryption? Of course, Ghana has a Data Protection Act which guarantees the privacy of every citizen. You can use any means to protect these things. And of course, there are guidelines for people who collect data to be able to put in place certain systems to ensure that people do not, have access to that data. But there are times when you see people send spam, so to speak, from our network operators and other things which you have not authorized. And so could it be that the enforcement of these laws, as we always say in Ghana, we have all the beautiful laws, and yet it's not being enforced. We have countries like Rwanda coming to take laws from here, and they're acting and doing it so beautifully that it has caught the eye of the globe or the world. So we have all these things in place, and we will dissect this further. Then, of course, when it comes to encryption, it's still not very well known within the community. But we have talked a little bit about what encryption is, what you can do with encryption, and how that with all these things, you are able to enforce certain things. But the concept generally is that encryption is for law enforcement to be able to do the work of national security. And so from that perspective, we're looking at this topic from the perspective of whether you want your privacy or you want government or the authorities responsible to use encryption to be able to assess your privacy and other things for the purpose of national security. And so first, I'd like to invite the panelists to give us a minute or two to talk about to introduce themselves and to tell us what they're doing in this area when it comes to that. And then after that, we will go into a few questions. Then we will come to the audience to actually share whatever questions or contributions they have. And then we will close the panel with a last remark from the panelists. So I'm starting from the bottom, and of course, the most prominent person in our midst, Honorable Samuel Nate George. can you have the floor for 2 minutes to just tell us.
Well, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here with ISOC. I was with a few members of ISOC in, I think, Malawi a few weeks ago when we had the African IGF. And it's good to see a few friends here. I'm calling them friends, but they know themselves. They've not checked up on me for a very long time, including the moderator of the panel, Mr. Akumia. And his co-conspirator who is sitting directly opposite me and smiling at his phone, the man they call Solomon. You know, they've chosen to abandon their former friend, but I'm still their friend. Anyway, my name is Samuel Nate George. I'm the Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram Pram, currently serving on the Parliamentary Select Committee on Communications. I used to be on the board of NITA, and that's how come myself and Mr. Kumia and Solo used to walk around. I always say everywhere I go, at times, some of the time, Solo is not there. Now that he's here, I'll say it. So in case they've gone to do concern about what I say about him, he will know that I said, this is what I really said. I've always said that Solomon is a national security asset to this country, and that it's important that we create clones of him. Because when I sat on the board of NITA, any day Solo was sick, I had diarrhea. Because if he's sick, the kind of knowledge he has about our current ICT infrastructure as a country is critical. And for me, he's like a 1 point of failure. And so I always say that there's a need for us to create more Solos to have redundancy in our system. But basically, we've been working in this space for a while now, and I would be bringing perspectives from the policy direction. As someone who has worked to expand the frontiers of internet access and freedoms on the internet, but also as someone who's also served in government and understands the desires and demands of state. So I'll try to balance both perspectives in my engagement with the conversation on the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I will now ask Kweku Sapomeno from SET-GH to also do a quick introduction.
Oh, yeah. Hello, yeah. So thank you very much. My name is Kweku Sapong Meno, working with the National Community Emergency Response Team that's of the Cybersecurity Authority. You know, we are the lead regulators of cybersecurity activities locally. We are supposed to ensure compliance, ensure the licensing, and basically the regulation of service providers, and also assisting individuals in cases of cybercrime or cyber attack. In this space, what we are looking at is upholding the rights to privacy of individuals. I mean, as an organization, what we are trying to do is to ensure that your security, your privacy, the confidentiality of your personal information is maintained across all the networks and all the platforms that are using, ensuring that your confidential, your financial data especially, is protected as it's being transported across networks. Your use of financial systems can actually be kept at a reasonable level of security. We will be representing on this panel, talking from more of a technical point of view, trying to raise the awareness of encryption, its need, and also try to bring about the awareness of the need for balance too as well. Because it has already been established that though encryption is a very useful tool, just like any other tool or technology, depending on who is using it and how it is being used, it may end up serving either a positive or negative purpose. So what we are here to do today is to bring out some of these opinions and then also arrive at some consensus as to how to address the challenge of encryption versus national security.
Thank you very much, Kweku. Now, I'd like to invite Emmanuel Gadasu to introduce yourself and to make your opening statement on the subject. You have the floor.
Yeah. Hello, good. Yes, my name is Emmanuel Gadasu, and I am a data privacy practitioner and a consultant. It is important we address the issues of privacy against the demands of national security, albeit the interests of government and regulatory bodies. It is critical that whilst we seek to protect the privacy of the individual, we also look at the obligations of the state to provide security for every citizen in the country. However, in doing so, we need to seek a balance where governments or regulatory bodies do not abuse what they have been mandated to do. Security and privacy are both important, and in almost all the regulatory laws across the world, they make room for security services to, at some point, when it becomes legally necessary, to override the privacy rights of an individual, when it is justifiably so. So I think this course calls for another look at how we can marry these two, so that one, the individual's privacy right is not breached, and the government also have that obligation to protect all of us. So it is important we have this discussion and see where we can make trade-offs to the benefit of both sides, not only to the individual, but also to governments as well, to protect the majority of the citizenry. So I believe this is going to be a very good discussion where we can all have a point to make so that the government and the individual, we will all be satisfied to the benefit of all parties involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akumia. I hope I can be heard loud and clear. Okay. So my name is Nicholas Lenin Anane Ejeyi. I am an IGF Youth Ambassador for this year, and I'm also a lawyer and a privacy enthusiast, as well as a technological law enthusiast. Now, I have listened to my colleague panelists, and I think the conversation with privacy and national security, it's more like in our personal homes, why we get security men. I mean, you put security men at the post to make sure that your home is secure, but you also don't want the security man in your bedroom and your living room every single moment in the name of him protecting you. So you always have to draw a balance between how they exist and how we work with. So as far as this conversation is concerned, I would be contributing my end, the legal perspective in terms of the current state of the law of encryption in Ghana and how it compares with other jurisdictions that have had need for encryption for national security matters, particularly the US and the UK. I'm hoping that through this comparative analysis, we would be able to have a better view of not just how the state of our law is, but also how other places are practicing and implementing these issues. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
have different grades of them. The ones that are used by for public use, and the ones that are used by military defense units, and the future ciphers or future algorithms, future encryptions. I work within one of the elite units that's responsible for development of ciphers that cannot be broken by quantum computers. We have post-quantum cryptographic protocols that falls within that category. I know most of you are aware of quantum computing, and we also have quantum cryptography, which is different from post-quantum cryptography. Currently, works are going on in the sector of post-quantum cryptography, and I review for those scientific organizations that are responsible for development of standards for those encryption algorithms that will be used for both the civilian and then the defense sector. And these are globally accepted standards, and also some of the standards that cannot be used in public domain. I develop systems that can harm systems, and I also develop systems that can save systems. So what I mean is that, like, let's say in medicine, I do things that can kill someone, at the same time I do things that can save someone within the space of the encryption space. So, which means I develop ciphers that protect, and I also develop ciphers that can destroy, kind of a thing, and stuff like that. And within the cipher space also, like how we have the nuclear space, not all ciphers are supposed to be used publicly. If you use certain ciphers or you transport them across borders, you can be arrested and jailed and punished for the transportation of those ciphers, which forms part of the munition list of certain countries that are prohibited. I understand that. I've also worked within those regimes. And I also work within, in terms of privacy and stuff like that. I advocate for certain technologies. For example, chips in human bodies. I'm a very good fan of chips in human bodies because that is the future. Whether you like it or not, your children will have those chips in their bodies, and some will queue and beg for the chips in their bodies because it's very important for those chips to be in their bodies. So I'm a very good advocate for the chips in the body. I've reviewed those technologies in terms of chips in the body, and I've seen progress in very state-of-the-art and classified laboratories where they are working on chips in human bodies. I've been able to convince people, even with those who work with the European Parliament, on allowing machines to control humans and machines to make decisions and not humans at a certain point, and they agree and accept it, so you could understand. If I can convince someone to allow a machine to make a decision instead of a human being making that aspect of the decision. And it was fun in terms of understanding the need for those technologies. At the same time, I serve on responsible AI. Okay, artificial intelligence is my minor, my major is cryptology. So you know artificial intelligence is here to stay, is the future, and we are advancing on so many things within that sector, and I like those technologies because even artificial intelligence emanated from cryptology in terms of all those things. I will try and explain to you. So let me quickly move to give you a very brief background in terms of the cybersecurity and then the cyberspace, and I'm happy that we have people from the high school here. Don't worry even if you don't understand anything much, but I'll try to break it down for you. So I'm moving into the space of the encryption and everything. Most of you here have practiced encryption before, and you've tried to, and you've experienced things within the space of information security. Now, information security is different from cyber security. Okay, the cyberspace is different from the information space. So sometimes people try to mix the two. It's very different. Now, when we talk about information security has been with us before the birth of Jesus Christ. Okay, and I think this is the third time I'm saying this openly. It has been with us. It has been with us before the birth of Jesus Christ. A very good example is the Caesar cipher that was there. We have the Namotep. We have different ways that military commanders used to communicate with people. Back, our forefathers have used encryption. And they've spoken in languages and created things that others could not understand, and they used it to communicate. Sometimes you also devise ways and means to communicate in the house that it is only you and the person that is communicating understands what you are saying. Okay, so those are forms that they use to disguise communication, and these things has been with us for a very long time. Now, the cryptography, okay, has also been with us. So it's just the same thing as the encryption approach, and encryption is a subset of the space of cryptography. So after the Second World War, before a lot of advancement has been made in terms of how they can use it more in terms of securing more critical infrastructure. Now, I've also worked within the defense sector for a very long time to understand so many things that happen. There are so many technologies that has been used, including robots, drones, technologies tested. I've seen technologies of the future, and I understand technologies of the future that are yet to come. So I can give you much more key information to that space. So it reached a point during the Second World War. There were a lot of activities that happened. It was actually cryptologists that stopped the Second World War. That is Alan Turing, which with the aid of the Polish intelligence unit, they were able to break the Enigma cipher. And in breaking the Enigma cipher, they realized that artificial intelligence has a very key role to play, because the amount of computations and the intelligence that have to go into the breaking, and then there were also a lot of language analysts and other things that has been used. And that is how come you realize within these few days there has been a lot of interest in the natural language processing, and then they try to document a lot of languages around the world and see how they can use computers to do translation of languages. Those things are not necessarily for public interest per se, but it is good so that they commercialize certain aspects and make money out of it. So I'll explain those tricks within the defense sector and stuff like that for you. So even there are a lot of ciphers that has been used. For example, the Diffie-Hellman key exchange, the RSA and stuff like that, were developed and used by the Government Communication Headquarters in the UK and also the National Security Agency in USA. And all those things were military technologies and stuff like that.
Kester,
summarize it.
You have 1 minute. Just wrap up this one. We'll come back to you, but
okay,
I
sure.
want to give the opportunity.
Yeah, so I'll use the 1 minute to actually wrap it up for you. So these encryption technologies has been used within the security agencies to do a whole lot, okay, leading to the introduction to the natural language processing that have to help so that when they decrypt an information, they can see whether, because it will give you different results, they will see whether which language is it in, so that they can decrypt it, the machines can decrypt that and then also do the translation for them to detect exactly which language it is in. So when we go later into details, I'll explain to you where some privacy issues come in and where certain aspects also have to be written off. Then that will give you a better, clearer understanding, and you can also make your own judgment as to whether it is needed for national security or privacy. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good introduction from globally what is happening. I want us to come down and we will look at encryption practically as it's been used within our cybersecurity authority. And then we'll listen to Gadasu talk us a little more about the privacy before we go to Lennon, and then we will give our Honorable Sam George to put it together and focus on how we can move this forward in terms of a coherent policy for Ghana. So, Kweku, you can take the floor and tell us a little more about encryption in Ghana.
Very well. So, as a cybersecurity authority, we take data privacy, data confidentiality, data integrity very seriously. And so should you as individuals. Like my brother from National Security rightly mentioned, you have used some form of encryption one way or the other by simply using a social networking platform like WhatsApp, Telegram, Snapchat, or even Facebook. You have been exposed to encryption. By using an ATM card, you've been exposed to encryption. By even placing a phone call, you've been exposed to encryption in one way or the other. And this is all based on some mathematical principles and calculations that are being done by your devices or your artifacts, which ensure that your data is kept secret and kept private. As an authority, one way that we use encryption is through what we call PGP keys or PGP encryption. So this allows you to use a shared key where you have a public key and a private key. One can be used to encrypt a message and one can be used to decrypt a message. One useful way that this tool helps us is that it allows anyone we communicate with, first of all, to verify that the message we are sending them actually came from us. So once you have my key, or once I have your public key, and I use that to encrypt a message, you can use your private key to decrypt the message, and you can have that maximum assurance that the message that you have in there was actually sent from me, and that was actually intended for you as well. This is embedded into applications like email for very confidential communications between certain parties that we deal with. Another area that we can find encryption being used is with the virtual private networks, or the VPNs. These are softwares that help us to create a secure communication channel between two parties. So if there's some highly confidential information that needs to travel between two members of a particular unit, or two, let's say, organizations, or within our organization and another, we can use a VPN to create that secure communication channel and ensure that the information that is being transferred at that time cannot be intercepted by anyone. It cannot be tampered with. You cannot have anyone trying to replay the message or perform what we call a man-in-the-middle attack on our communications. So those are some ways that encryption or cryptography helps us in our work and in our activity as an authority. On the flip side too, as we are carrying out our daily activities, we receive incidents and reports, and we note that, especially those that come through social media. And one of the challenges that comes through is, especially for a platform like Snapchat, we are not able to have access to certain communications because it is being cleared automatically, or the platform itself protects that information from being transferred. In certain cases too, we find out that some services like cryptocurrency are also being used, and these are used by both malicious and genuine actors. And in fact, the underlying principle there is the encryption, because that's what enables the infrastructure to stand. It secures the transaction, it protects against double spending, it protects against all other kinds of fraud. But then there also comes a challenge where a malicious user uses these kinds of services, and we are unable to tell the very fine details, because especially for cryptocurrency, it uses a pseudonym, or it uses more like an alias, a nickname for each user. And so this presents some form of challenge for us as a regulator. However, we have our colleague institutions which assist us in carrying out more detailed and more fine-grained investigations. Yes. Yeah, I think I can yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kweku. It's given us some insight to how, because we want to make a choice here, right? We're looking at privacy and encryption. The question is, which one would you prefer? Okay? So I want to sweep over to Emmanuel to also talk to us about privacy, what it entails, how you can keep your privacy, before we talk to the other panelists. Emmanuel, you have 2 minutes. Please just preach your gospel, and let's see what we can get out of it.
Each and every one of us. Lies that if we are exposed or people get to know about us, they could use it to cause some form of harm to us. They could reveal so many things about us that we wouldn't ordinarily want this information to be in the public domain. So it is critical that our privacy is protected. So what is your privacy or my privacy? It simply means you control the kind of information you would want people to have access to about you, or you would want people to use in doing certain things or providing some services for you. So you limit the control of such information. It is important to know that the more information people have about you, the more they can in so many ways cause some form of harm, discomfort, or distress to you because they have wrongly used this information about you. For example, if you have some medical ailments, you wouldn't want it to be out there on social media or so many people having access to this information. However, if it goes out there, you would be probably victimized as a result of some health challenges that you suffer. You could be discriminated against in providing certain services to you because you are coming from certain areas or some information that people have about you. So in so many ways, there are regulations that controls organizations or individuals who processes this information about you to control them in a way that they would not abuse the use of information about you, even though they have it. So for example, your HR in your organization or as a student in your school, your counselor may have some details about you, but he or she is not supposed to make it public or accessible to unauthorized people, or will only disclose that on need-to-know basis so that your privacy is maintained. So we are looking at how regulatory bodies such as the Data Protection Commission of Ghana and the Act 843, which mandates them and gives them the authority to regulate how other organizations process. By process, I mean how they collect this information, how they use it, whom they share it with, how they store it, how they even destroy this information if they no longer have any need for them. So all these things need to be regulated in order to provide the privacy that you and I we need. Because in society, some people do speak of the fact that, oh, I have nothing to hide. That is a very wrong statement because people do not know the impact of what just a simple message or information about you can be used to harm you in so many other ways, or most probably be discriminated against. You'll be prevented from accessing certain services. There are certain things you'll be denied unconsciously. You may not know, but it is because of the kind of information that people have had access to about you. So in short, privacy is very important, and at all costs, we need to safeguard it. That's why these regulations are there to help us maintain our privacy at all costs. Thank you.
You have some insight on what is required by national security in terms of law and other things. Can you give us some kind of highlights on, how national security can have access to the information and things that, they need to have if they suspect, for instance, that you are working with some terrorists? What is there for us to know before we begin to talk about what has to be done in terms of the policy angle, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Samia. So, begin with, let me make one point that the state of law as it stands does not encryption end-to-end. The result of end-to-end encryption is that communication cannot be intercepted. But the Cybersecurity Act, which established the Cybersecurity Authority in 2020, and then also the Security and Intelligence Act, also of 2020, contains provisions on the interception of communication. Now, under the Securities and Intelligence Act, for the state be able to intercept communication, they have to make an application to a high court judge. And if the application is to intercept content of communication, then that application has to be signed personally by a high court judge or a superior court judge. That's either the High Court, Court of Appeal, or the Supreme Court. So to be able to get a warrant, however, they have to demonstrate that there's no other way of getting the information they are looking for other than being that much intrusive. And also, secondly, that it is proportional and necessary that they undertake what they are undertaking. But the Cybersecurity Authority has a more intrusive power under Section 76 of their Act, which is that they can request any service provider to implement what we call an interception capability. So they can, for instance, tell MTN or WhatsApp or any service provider that uses encryption to provide a backdoor access for communication. The catch, however, is that even though they can request them to implement an interception capability, once that interception capability is implemented, they cannot access it as of right. Anytime they want to access it, they have to go back to a high court judge, a warrant, and they have to again demonstrate that it is proportional, it is necessary, there's no other way of getting it and whatnot. So the challenge then becomes the authority can request an interception capability resort to the court. Then it means that they can request that a permanent gate may be created into service providers. However, to be able to access it, they have to be able to go to court. So the policy consideration becomes, should they have the power to create a permanent gateway when anytime they have to access it, they have to go back to prove evidence, or we should prevent them from creating that permanent gateway in the first place, so that whenever they need it, they should go and access the warrants before they come. But more importantly also, the law specifically provides, and 76 that an interception capability, when it is requested, that service provider should have the capacity to decrypt messages. It's not just a case of provide a backdoor access, but then your backdoor access should be capable of decrypting whatever communication you host on your platform. And that poses huge challenges for companies that have privacy as a selling for their products. For instance, Apple, WhatsApp, those companies that sell themselves have been top-notch privacy. So in terms of a perspective on how national security assess information, that is how it starts. They need a one time they want to do, but under the Cybersecurity Act, they can request the creation of the gateway. Even though one gateway is created, they need a warrant to be able to access. And practically, in 2021, when government requested Momo transaction details of subscribers in the name of being able to do contact tracing in COVID, it was one of the reasons the court cited for preventing that access. The fact that the financial data being requested in the name of contact tracing was disproportionate to what government wanted, and it was too intrusive. So that is the state of the law. The proportionality test, the necessity test must be satisfied, but they can request a backdoor access. And if you fail, the penalty is 10,000 penalty units, about 120,000 Ghana cedis, because the penalty unit is 12 Ghana cedis. So that is the state of the law in terms of powers of national security. But finally, I want to point out that formed a legal circle, and national security has not been defined in any of the acts. The Cybersecurity Act, the Securities and Intelligence Act do not define what national security is, except to say that they give examples of what may constitute national security. like cyber attacks, cyber warfare, espionage, anything that is prejudicial. But the term national security remains undefined across our laws. So that is what I have to say of the law, the national security access. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Interesting insights. You know, what authority has been given to national security or security agencies to be able to intercept. There's a question I wanted to ask, but I'll come back and delve with that. So we're talking about privacy versus national security. Where do we draw the lines? I'd like to ask Honorable Sam George to talk about the policy perspective and to give us some indication where he thinks all this must go. Over to you, Honorable.
All right, thank you very much. And I think the last gentleman, Nicholas, did a good job of situating where legislation is. Legislation is as a result of policy. If I'll take us back a bit, in 2015, the NDC administration of John Dramani Mahama brought to Parliament the Interception of Postal Packets Bill 2015, which was rejected by Parliament. It was nicknamed the Spy Bill. And then you have the Cybersecurity Act that he references of 2020. It's interesting because literally what happened that led to that was the recognition of persons on both sides of the political divide, of the growing threats, and persons who opposed the 2015 bill as a spy bill now being the lead sponsors in 2020 of the same bill word for word to do interception. But then, I mean, 5 years is a long time in politics and in cyberspace, and people to come to the realization of the necessities. And so what we did was we said, well, at the time, the policy direction from the ministry was to have two bills. The Cybersecurity Act, which was supposed to set up the Cybersecurity Authority, and then an interception bill. The decision was taken that to be able to get this through Parliament, and don't forget, 2020 was an election year. And so with all the political nuances, to be able to get this through Parliament, because we both agreed in principle, because don't forget that the party in opposition now had been the party to actually introduce it when it was in government in 2015. It was opposed by then opposition, now in government. And if they've come to the realization on the basis of principle, it would not make sense that you would say, I'm opposing it, because then that would be playing partisan politics. But where we sit as a country, we needed to be prepared for the threats that we were being saddled with. And so you had this decision to have a composite bill. And I think I spoke about it in Malawi and even in Zambia recently. We have asked the whole of Africa to come and take Ghana's cybersecurity law and study it. It is two different laws that are compressed into one. So when you read from section 1 to I think 68 or 69, that is literally the Cybersecurity Authority and the work the Cybersecurity Authority does. When you take from section 70, I think, or 69 down, in fact, we headed it interceptory provisions. That then is no longer Cybersecurity Authority per se. Even though we have crafted our law in such a way that the Cybersecurity Authority is the one that makes the request, they're actually making that request on behalf of sister agencies like the National Signals Bureau. Now, it's important that we draw the distinction that when it comes to cybersecurity, and again, that's another point I've been making to stakeholders, that I hear a lot of talk from civil society that governments and policymakers must give them the room to engage with what the protocols and policies are. And I've been saying something that is not very pleasant to the ears of civil society. I say that I don't hear any civil society group, not even Amnesty International, demanding to have a conversation with the Chief of Defense Staff or National Security Coordinator on how defense policy is developed, because they see that as military, as defense. Well, cybersecurity is also national security. It's military, it's defense. The only difference is that your traditional military and defense policy is military hardware, let me put it that way. But cybersecurity has a civilian and military component, where the state has its interest and the citizens like myself and you also have our interest. The two kinds of security outlooks that we must have: protection of the state and protection from the state. Until we draw those distinctions, civil society would always be at loggerheads with policy formulators and implementers. Protection of the state is required for all of us. That's where all the encryption conversation and the things that Prof talks about, that I saw people's heads in the skies, and how he's hoping that machines will take decisions for us, and but you need those protections. Only the state can provide those protections, using agencies like the Cybersecurity Authority to domesticate the Malabo and Budapest Conventions, give you online protection, protection against gender-based violence online, child online protection, and all of those other things, banking security for your apps. Those are protections that only the state can provide for you. And those are the things we must demand of the state. However, we must also demand of the state protection from the state. And that is where, when you go to the interceptory powers provisions in the Cybersecurity Act, we've given them 3 layers of interceptory powers: subscriber information, traffic data, and I think content data as well. Those were very big sticking points when we're crafting the legislation, because for us, traffic data, for example, would allow a service provider basically do a big swoop of a triangulation area and pull all of that data. And our question was, if I am a person of interest and I'm situated in this particular location and you want to monitor my data, and you are taking traffic data off, let's say, a triangulated network of maybe 3 or 4 cell sites, and pulling all of that traffic data, the rest of the people in this room will be affected and victims of that interception. They are not the persons of interest. So how then do we protect them and ensure that their privacy is not infringed unnecessarily? Because if you leave all of that data in the hands of an operator or a state agency that has a certain agenda, you begin to go into the privacies of the citizens. And that's where civil society groups are very key, to ensure protection from the state. And one of the things we did in passing the legislation from Parliament was to put in place safeguards. Safeguards we learned from other jurisdictions like the UK. In the UK, for example, what they have is a panel of 13 members, former members of the Supreme Court of the UK, or the House of Lords. And when a request to a judge is made, again, there was the fear that some judges may become appendages of the executive to approve interception warrants that do not meet the proportionality, necessity, the 3-layer test. But because they have become appendages of the executive, they will approve this for interceptions to be carried out on persons of interest for political reasons. Now, in the UK, what they've done is that after, I think, every 6 months or every 1 year, that panel sits to do a review of all interception warrants that were granted and does a post facto analysis of whether it meets the 3-layer test. If it fails even one of those tests, it is deemed that that interception warrant was wrongfully granted. and then the citizen is informed of that breach of his privacy and has the opportunity to seek redress in a civil court for compensation. We've tried to mimic it in our law, even though it's not so clear. Because, again, like I said, the Cybersecurity Authority, for me, is one of the finest creations of legislation in our country. Cybersecurity is at the forefront, authority is at the forefront of providing security for the citizens, which is what I defined as security from the state. But we should be minded as well that you've got other agencies, and the Cybersecurity Authority has become, by purpose of this legislation, has become an enabler for other agencies like the Signals Bureau, like Defense Intelligence, who would want the Cybersecurity Authority to go and get the interception warrants for them to deal with persons of interest. So, Nikra Krad is saying, all the plenty English I've spoken is simple in conclusion, is that, and never give a politician a microphone. If that politician also has a law background, then you're in trouble. A politician and lawyer, they talk forever. But, and then I'm a church elder too. Chai, the combination is bad. But all I'm saying is this. We live in a digital world, and that's one thing I agree with Prof on, that you cannot run away from where the world has got into and where we're going to. We're going to be constantly exposed to the digital world. We need to be protected in the exercise of our freedoms, the online freedoms we're asking for. We need protection because individuals cannot put in place the necessary security protections for yourself. But we need the state to provide those layers of protection for citizens to enjoy their online freedoms uninhibited and without fear of being impersonated or losing their data. However, in giving the state the power to provide us protections, we must also put in safeguards for the state to know, like I think it was Nicholas again who gave that analogy in his introduction, that the state must know the boundaries of their power in protecting us. Because you don't want a security man who is supposed to be at the gate, preventing people from coming to hurt you, now being in your bathroom, checking the soap you are using to take your bath. The security man's post is at the gate, not in my bathroom or in my kitchen. And so drawing that fine balance is where, for me, we need to work together as civil society and policymakers and as lawmakers to ensure that the laws we pass are reflective of civil society's needs and aspirations, and as well reflective of the need of the state to be able to provide the security that the people need. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable. I think you've summarized everything up for us. Now, I want to bring the conversation. We are far behind time, but I want to bring the conversation to the audience. If you have any questions or contribution, we can take only 5, and then they will make their closing remarks. You wanted to say something? Okay. So if you want to ask a question, please come out there, stand there, and then you make your questions. I'll get the MC to get the mic, or you will go to them when they have.
Yeah, okay. So based on what he said, I think you've made certain things clearer to me. So I wanted to make a point and also to explain some aspect of something. So when I look at also the National Cybersecurity Act that set up the National Cybersecurity Authority, I realized that there is a huge problem with the act. And even moving forward, I can see some actions and practices that is going to be a threat to even the progress of the authority. For example, what you said, the civil side is different from the defense side. And I think that boundary has not been made clear. And I have the National Signal Bureau, the new act that they have now is okay. And they have done certain things also in the past that I know, and certain agencies also have done certain things that I know, that I think a little bit push to them will place them in that capacity that they can develop their own capabilities within the cyberspace and make sure that there is progress in that direction, rather than moving everything to the Ministry of Communication that will cripple the country moving forward in that cyber space. So I think it will have to be relooked at and done. And I also detected that maybe one of the reasons why you made the point clear, but it looks like you couldn't have more grounding maybe when you were trying to push your agenda. I think the way the Parliament engages people in terms of the working on the act and then the bill, they have to take a look at it a little bit. Because I consult also for the UK Parliament, and I've been doing that since way back before 2012 on their policies and a whole lot of things. And it's very open, and it's not limited to, when they have their group of experts, if I mean it's open, it doesn't mean anybody per se, but they have group of experts. So if I could be an expert for the UK, even on the US artificial intelligence policy, I was an expert on it. When you check the list in terms of those who even petitioned Donald Trump, I'm one of the people who petitioned Donald Trump together with other top researchers and experts around the world. But I realized that the opening up of those acts and bills is only limited to certain people. Now, currently, even with the certification, somebody said yesterday at a particular meeting that the National Cybersecurity Authority is trying to generate funds by implementing some of the things, and I'm sure one of them is certification. That is an enemy to the progress of the cyberspace. And let me say this, to me, this is my own personal observation, that I realize some individuals are trying to benefit because maybe they have institutions or training institutions that they want to use as a way of certifying and generating funds, which is, it's not bad per se, but the core part in terms of providing the technical expertise and creating the platform so that you can extract the best towards this cyberspace is very important, because currently we are at the information age, and information superiority competition started as far back 2010, and there were preparations towards that from 2003 up to 2010, and US and UK have worked on their human capacity. So you realize that when you look at the UK Parliament, they pass a law to scrap out ICT out of the syllabus, and they replace it with computer science from 2012 going, and they say ICT will no longer be studied because ICT is harmful to their future. So they've cleared ICT out of their syllabus and they replace it with computer science. And if you can take a critical look, you realize that the US also, Barack Obama also started coding from the White House in order to boost more of their citizens' interest in the computer science field and scrapping off those ICT things. And at the same time also, the Israeli government performed an activity with the Marshall Project where they try to engage people in kindergartens in certain key syllabus and stuff like that. So a lot of countries have repositioned their human capacity towards those development in terms of beefing it up. So I think Parliament will have to really find a way of re-engaging people so that you can get more support from the technical experts in making sure that these things that you are saying, which is 100% true, is pushed through and not only by a set of majority. They will be convinced by that.
Thank you very much. That's very insightful to complement whatever we are doing. Are there people who want to ask questions? There's nobody. Okay, so our MC wants to ask a question, yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir. My first question is to the policymakers. What is private in the Ghanaian context? What is the extent of our privacy? So what do we say is private to a Ghanaian in terms of information to the
Yes, do we have any more? We just want to take all the questions and then, yes, there's a hand here. Please, can you bring the mic?
Thank you. So I have about 3 questions to ask. My first question, I would want to know if there are any hindrances to we making national issues private, because most of the times we realize that there are information that people need to know, but is not given out. So the average Ghanaian works with a different mindset as compared to those who are in those positions. Let's say national security, they have all the details, but the average Ghanaian lacks all that. So how to go about issues nationally, sometimes you see the Ghanaian lacking behind. So I want to know if there are any hindrances why the Ghanaian wouldn't have access to all those information, especially when it's national. And the other one I want to know is on the laws. After making the laws, how do we get it down to the people? Because most of our laws seem to be hanging up there alone, unless maybe something comes up and we go back to it. But we don't see the laws going down to the people. So how do we get it to the people so much so that people know that this law exists and is actually working for us? The other thing was on cybersecurity. So cybersecurity, I heard Honorable say that he told the African countries to come for our laws and probably be reading around it and implement. How strong is our own? How is it helping our country so that we are calling on other people to come and then copy or maybe learn from us? Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any online questions? You have someone else? Okay. We are taking up to 5, so, and all the panelists are free to answer. What I'll do is to incorporate it into your last comments. When you answer the question, then you just give us, because we are far behind time. Yes.
Yes, good morning. Since Sam George is here, Honorable Sam George is here, I admire him so much, and he's been fighting for we citizens in terms of SIM card registration and other things. So I really admire him so much. He's pushing the agenda for Stubborn Academy. So, okay, my question to Honorable, with the data being collected by the telcos with respect to the SIM card registration, is our privacy being abused, or is our data, are the telcos having access to the data they are taking from us regarding the our data or the information on the Ghana card? Is there any way the telcos are having that data, or is our data exposed in any way? And then on the same stance, is it right for us to base Ghana? Currently, it's like everything is about the Ghana card. Everything, we are linking the Ghana card to our banking, linking it to our education, linking it to everything. Is it right? Are we safe that we are linking our Ghana card to everything? Isn't our data being exposed to some of these institutions? And then my last question goes to Prof. I'm very happy you spoke about education, training, and all that. It's like currently, the IT space or the computer science space, we don't, or the most educational institutions are not running courses that suit the trends in the IT sector now. It's the norm, the courses we've known over the years, BSc Computer Science, BSc IT. Currently, I think we are moving to the cybersecurity space, information security, encryption, data science, cryptography, AI, robotics. Most of these courses, new courses, are being run in foreign universities. But when we come to Ghana in our tertiary institutions, see they are doing BSc Computer Science, BSc Information Technology, or BSc Information Systems. We are not seeing these courses out there, and this is the future. The future is artificial intelligence. The future is data science. The future is data analytics. What are we doing? You've been in the educational sector. Honorable is also here. What is government doing? What are you people in the educational sector doing to ensure that we begin having good programs in our educational institutions? Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much. Honorable Sam George, I want you to answer this question. Maybe Prof will also help. I want us to know or establish the fact, what will be the worst consequences if we don't, take this online privacy and encryption serious as a country? Because I strongly believe that in the next maybe 5-10 years, everything will be centered around politics and then law and then technology. Most of the governance. So if we don't take it serious, what's the worst thing that will happen to us in the next 5-10 years? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we have our 5 questions. I wanted them to sum up, but what I'll do is I'll just let them answer, starting with Honorable St. George, because he has a lot of the questions. And then we will get Prof, and then we'll have comments from Kweku and Emmanuel and Nicholas.
All right, I feel unfairly targeted by the questions. Anyway, but I think the lady in the corner here asked about access to information on national issues. I believe that Parliament passes legislation and our legislation becomes public. If you are an industry player and you're a stakeholder, it is incumbent on you to make yourself abreast with the legislation that Parliament passes. That's what Assembly Press is there for. Assembly Press has all the legislations Parliament passes. Is it possible for every citizen to be made aware of all the legislation? Maybe that will move into the remit of NCCE, the National Commission on Civic Education, to do a little bit more of that education. But I believe that citizens also have responsibilities, and your responsibility is to be brought abreast. Parliament will not be in a position to, after passing the legislation, do public sensitization on the legislation again. The second question you asked is around the same line, dissemination of legislations to the public. Like I said, once Parliament does its work of making the law is public information. I think I'll dovetail that to something that Prof raised about the kind of engagement processes that Parliament takes. And it's a point I made to the gentleman from ISOC and a few other civil society organizations when we met in Malawi. I called them for a meeting and I said to them that I thought we needed to have better engagement between civil society organizations, stakeholders and Parliament, because the committee is, and again, let's be clear, Parliament passes the law, but the law doesn't emanate from Parliament. It emanates from the ministry, who is a policy director, or gives a policy direction. It goes through cabinet and then it comes to Parliament. What Parliament can try to do is to shape the policy. Like I said, when the law came to Parliament, and using the Cybersecurity Act as an example, when the law came to Parliament, in fact, what the policy maker wanted was to be able to do interceptions for 48 hours without a court order, which meant that they could intercept for 48 hours without a court order. It was Parliament that made those amendments and said, you can't intercept anybody for 48 hours. We would rather have designated judges who, even on a Sunday or at 2 a.m., if national security had need, you could go to these designated judges and get a warrant. And again, not just anybody could make the request. You didn't want a constable who wanted to spy on his girlfriend and know who his girlfriend, if his girlfriend is talking to another person, raising an interception warrant and all of that. You put in an officer of a certain rank across all the security services. So Parliament can try to shape it, but even with that, you are restrained in how much you can change a legislation that, or a bill that has come to Parliament. How robust are Ghana's laws? At times, I think that as Ghanaians, we don't celebrate our successes enough. I've encountered members of Parliament from across the continent, and I can confidently beat my chest and say that Ghana is a leading light on the African continent when it comes to legislation that is IT-based. If you take the top 10 African countries, we are in there. Currently, if you even look at the Malabo and Budapest conventions, the Malabo Convention has not even kicked in yet because we haven't gotten 15 signatories, which is needed to activate it. Ghana was the 8th country on the continent to ratify it in our parliament. So we're leading light. We may have our challenges like every institution, but I think that there are things that we can be celebrated for. For example, Ghana's data protection law, which goes back to 2012. There are many top African countries that still don't have a data protection law. And so when we invite them to come and learn from us, we're standing on solid ground, even though I also hold the view that most of Ghana's legislation in the IT space is becoming archaic, mundane, and outdated. Because when you look at the Electronic Communications Act, Electronic Transactions Act, these were 2008 legislations. These are laws that are what, 12, 14 years old. You can't have a 14-year-old legislation in this IT space. The data protection law is 10 years old this year. And so from Parliament, we've been impressing on the ministry to immediately commence a review of most of our existing legislation. But even with our old laws, we're still years and years ahead of many of our contemporaries. What is the definition of private? Well, I would leave that for someone else to mention. But in a country where we actively have, and again, this has been my challenge with some of the Western world authorities that try to put pressure on Ghana and African countries and say human rights and freedom of expression, blah, blah, blah. It's the UK government and the US government that provided the Ghanaian police service the Cellbrite system. The Cellbrite system is a decryption key or equipment that allows police services to be able to break into the phones of journalists. Cellbrite was developed to attack journalists' privacy. It's the US government and the UK government that provided that equipment to the Ghanaian police service. So if you do that, and Ghana on its own has also gone to buy Pegasus under the NDC administration, which is an Israeli system that is supposed to also be able to break encryption, when you ask what the boundaries of privacy are, and I'm speaking here not as a politician or as a lawmaker, I'm speaking here as an internet user, because we're all at risk. If you really look at what the boundaries of privacy are, I would say that the boundaries of privacy in Ghana are very slim because of the capacities or capabilities that exist in the country today. Data collection by telcos is it? And let me just say, the Stubborn Academy thing, it's not my academy, please. But let me be quick to say that if you have the Ghana card, and this is a call I've been making, if you do have the Ghana card, please go and register your SIM card. People have taken my advocacy out of context. I am not against a SIM card registration. In fact, as part of a government that passed the law for SIM card registration in 2011, the LI 2006, which is the Subscriber Identity Model Registration Regulations. And so I am not against SIM card registration. I have issues with the ministry on the modalities that are being implemented, but I am not against the principle of SIM registrations. So if you have your Ghana card, go and register. My challenge is that the Ghana card is not printed by any citizen. It's printed by the National Identification Authority. If the NIA has not been able to produce enough Ghana cards for everybody, you cannot block my line because the NIA has not given me a SIM card. Maybe we should be looking at expanding the frontiers of registration documents beyond just the Ghana card to also look at driver's license, look at passports, and look at voters registration. In fact, when you read LI 2006, which I maintain is the only legislation for registration, in section 2 of that LI, it says that it actually lists 5 items that should be used for the, in section 2, it says that a subscriber must provide, regulation 2, you must provide your date of birth, your address, and an identification document. Then in regulation 10, it defines an identification document to be the National Health Insurance card, the Ghanaian passport, the driver's license, the voter's ID card, and the Ghana identity card, which is the Ghana card. By virtue of the Abu Ramadan EC case, the National Health Insurance card cannot be used as a determination of identity, but the other 4 should be allowed to be used, and that's basically our argument. And I would suggest, or I would support a deadline of even 3 months if all those cards are allowed for registration. Because if you're a Ghanaian citizen and you're not a criminal, you would definitely have either a Ghana card, a passport, a voter's card, or a driver's license. So if in 3 months you don't go and register, then you're a crook. And that one, I'll support them to block your line. And so, but on the issue of the data that they are collecting, and forgive me, I'm taking all the time because you asked me all the questions. On the issue of the data that they are collecting, there is a question of privacy there as well, because if you read Regulation 9 of LI 2111, which is actually the LI that the NCA says they are using for this SIM card registration, strangely, because LI 2111 is the National Identity Registration Regulations. That LI states that for you to prove, I think it's captioned proof of biometric identity, for you to prove that your identity is what you say it is using the Ghana card, it must be by a device that the NIA has approved. And the NIA must not just approve it, the NIA must approve and gazette it publicly. As far as I'm aware, all the telcos that are currently doing verification of Ghana cards are not using devices that have been gazetted and approved by the NIA. So this may be controversial, but I think that all the data that is being collected in contravention of the laws of the land. Those are another issue that we've raised, but that's a discussion for another time. But it raises issues of data rights and protection, because if it is not pinging that data off the NIA database, but it's being held in, we are told, an encrypted manner for subsequent verification, the issues of data protection there. Is it safe to link everything to the Ghana card? Yes and no. It gives you a 1 point of failure. If our NIA database were to be hit and everything we do is with our Ghana card, it means everything from healthcare to driving to all kinds of systems are going to be hit simultaneously. However, it is also important that we don't have silos of various biometric systems like we saw in the country where SNIT had their own biometric system, DVLA had its own biometric, National Health Insurance. So I think that what we can do is to build the National Identification Authority system and make sure it's as robust and solid as it can be. There is no 100% robust system, but then build redundancies on the basis of the other biometric databases that we have, be it Electoral Commission, be it driver's license or the passport system, and make sure that we have that. Educational institutions to have reform of their curriculum, I agree with you. In this day and age, some of the courses our universities are churning out graduates for is leading to the increased unemployment, because the skills that are being given are not what industry wants. We need to have a holistic look at our educational curriculum, not just with ICT or telecommunications or technology, but holistically, to ensure that the graduates we are churning out are what industry really needs. But if you churn out someone who's going to do history and Spanish in Ghana, I really wonder where they are going to work, but that's the reality. If we don't take ICT serious, what is the worst case scenario? One of these days we'll wake up and we'll be back to 1505 in Ghana. Water will not flow, electricity will not flow, transportation will not happen. There'll be utter chaos. We'll be back to the Stone Age, and it's important that we take ICT serious. I want to believe that I have made an attempt to confuse you and not convince you, because convincing you will be much harder, but I've tried to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, that's okay. In terms of what you mentioned in terms of IT and stuff like that, we have 5 fields of computing. IT is not dominant over all the fields. We have computer science, we have software engineering, we have computer engineering, we have information systems and information technology. And these are distinct fields on their own. And these are the main fields. The other fields you've mentioned are auxiliary fields. So it's not that we are moving towards those directions. There are these fields that are actually feeding into those directions. And a quick one on the privacy. That's the last one that I'll tackle. There is nothing like privacy if you don't own your data. So for example, you are the host, you have a host system that you use to produce the data. There is a destination that you store it to or communicate it to, and we also have the channel, which is the transmission medium that the data can be intercepted at or not. So for example, if the data is not encrypted at your end before you are sending it to the other side, definitely they will know what you have. So for example, if you write a message to threaten maybe somebody like the US president and stuff like that using WhatsApp, they are going to know, which means that they have access to all those data sets and stuff like that. So if you don't own the data, privacy and all those things you are talking about will not work. So within our country, our laws is only limited to the data that we house here, own and everything. But in terms of what you keep out there, they use it for anything and do whatever they want to do for it. So we have to be concerned in terms of this. And the encryption schemes that are being used and monitored by the government here are all public standard. They are supposed to be developing their own encryption grid for their own communications. Thank you.
Yeah, so Nicholas, can you give us your last words? If there are any questions that you want to answer, please go ahead. And then we'll receive from Emmanuel too before we come finally to Kweku to close us.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Amir. So on the questions there's just one I want to start, which is how we get lost to the people. I do understand my senior fellow's position, Honorable Sam George, on it being citizens' responsibility to find the law. But I must confess that even as a lawyer, having access to the proper, authentic state of our laws is not easy. He references the assembly press, but I think it runs against the spirit of everything we are doing here, that in 2022, people have to walk to the assembly press to purchase hard copies of laws to be able to access it. I've accessed Parliament's website a number of times, and even when new laws are passed, you don't get them there. Sometimes you get some of the Hansas, but you don't find others. So I think we can generally do better in terms of putting together an IT infrastructure that can house our laws, amendments, and everything that comes with it. I mean, the UK, the US have it, uk.gov, legislation.uk.gov. Every law of the UK, you just Google it and you find it. So there's an IT era. Let us do better hosting our laws so that even those who want to access it can easily find it and not have to go to the assembly press. Now, on my final comment, I think the current dispensation of our interception is one that is good in terms of the tests that are set. That is the proportionality, the urgency, the necessity, and the fact that no other means. But the only challenge is in respect of the law giving the cybersecurity request backdoor. That law has not been exercised yet. That power has not been exercised yet, so we don't know how to pan out. But if it is not exercised, it has the capacity to render Ghanaian services uncompetitive on the global market, because products that have privacy as a selling point may not be headed our way. And most importantly also, once that law exists, you cannot be too sure that it is only the government that can assess it. Malicious actors may also find ways of assessing it to the point of attack. I also think that perhaps the law could have or a challenge point for companies that are requested to provide backdoors, because currently the law does not have it. So that if the cybersecurity authority is MTN to provide the backdoor, and MTN thinks that the request is unreasonable, there should be some inherent mechanism in them that allows MTN to challenge the request that has been made for correction. All in all, I think
wrap up and then we
privacy is an important thing, and so is national security, and we should work together to find balance for both. Thank you.
Thank you. Emmanuel, you're next. Just summarize. If you have any specific responses to any questions, then we can close.
Yes, I would want to respond to the privacy who makes privacy. I think privacy is simply to say privacy is simply to say the information that you want to keep private about yourself. And foremost, it is the duty of every one of us to ensure that you limit access to what information people can have about you. Whilst we have regulations that would help us do that from the governance and from the government perspective, the responsibility lies on each and every individual to ensure that they keep themselves safe and also limit access to every information about themselves. So you should be aware of whom you are giving that information to. You are also entitled to know what they are going to use it for, whom they are going to share it with. So that will guide you in order to ensure or to inform you whether to give it out or not. So the individual responsibility is also very key in securing our own privacies in whatever we do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator.
So, Kweku, you have the fun. We close.
So thank you very much. I very much enjoyed the conversation we've had today. I love the contributions from our Honorable Sam George, from Lenin, from Prof, from Emmanuel. And so far we've been able to bring out the issues that are out there. We've been able to each express our points of view. We as the government, as law enforcement, helping you to understand that in this modern world, with the advent of cyber attacks from terrorist groups, with the advent of threats to children online, with the advent of threats to the average citizen, we do need to have some ability to handle those issues, to be able to preempt them especially. But at the same time, we also need to consider the privacy and the security aspects that the user, the average user, is also expecting. We do not want to compromise them or to breach their privacy with disregard to their rights to privacy, meaning that we would want to be able to carry out our duty, be able to do our job, but then also to protect you as an individual, as a user, from any form of abuse. I think at this point it's very clear how dicey this situation is and how challenging this conversation can be. But I want to end on the point that privacy is important, encryption is important, national security is also important. But then given the circumstances, given the threats, the emergent risks that are in cyberspace and that also threaten our national security, there would be a point where we need to make a decision, where we need to put our foot down and forge ahead in a particular direction. That will either enable us to remain resilient or that can leave us helpless. And hopefully when we get there, we'll be able to make that decision with the utmost clarity and make the one that would serve our best interests as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I see. Fortunately, we cannot, because, or you want us to give him the chance? Well, if he can stay, I think some people have been here. We still have a second panel before we close today. We're supposed to close around 12, right? And it's past 12 already. Okay, so let's listen to them, and then if there's any response, we'll give it quickly, and then we can go. So starting with Paul Safo. Yes, you can ask your question or your...
Yeah, it's a contribution. Thank you very much. Concerning the programs, one of the Paul Safo from Cape Coast Technical University. As a former head of department in academic session, I want to tackle this program, the trend, as one of the participants asked, that Ghana, we are not giving you the modern trends in data science, artificial intelligence, and robotics. As the prof said, actually, we review most of the programs we give every 4 years or every 5 years. We review and we chip in some of these trends. And I can tell you, most of the programs we give you, be it computer science or information technology, once you get the foundation, you'll be able to branch into data science, artificial intelligence, and robotics. For instance, KNUST, the computer science they have, they teach artificial intelligence, they teach robotics. Garden City University, for instance, the computer science they have, they teach artificial intelligence and then robotics. I majored in computer science, and based upon this foundation I got, IBM took only 1 week to train me in data science, and I passed my certification. The same way I've been able to train people. There's one lady whose background was in accounting with computing, and she applied for, data science for her major at the master's level. They, admitted her for that program. She's doing that one in the UK now. So whatever you are doing at the undergrad level, be it computer science or information technology, trust me, it's still giving you the foundation. And if you want to go into robotics, artificial intelligence, or data science, it's really in a good direction to prepare you for that, as Prof said. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the next person. Is that Justice? Yes, please. Be brief, 30 seconds.
I have a question on with regards to national security. My question is with privacy, the time in which we breach privacy, not to breach per se, but the procedure to go through to get access to people's information. Is it not too long? Because if I am to say that if there is an imminent attack or a threat, going through this procedure, wouldn't it that threat or that action have been taken before, as in crime would have been committed before any action is taken? Because if this procedure is so long, it will take time before the actual effect is being carried out. As in, if there's anything that the security have to come in to intervene to prevent any crime or anything of that sort, will this not affect, as in the long procedure that it has to go through, as in going through the judges for it to be signed and all those things? Would it not affect the national security in that sense? Because perhaps by that time, the crime would have been committed.
Thank you very much. Who wants to respond? Nicholas, do you want to say something?
Yes.
Or anybody from the panel here? Yes, Nicholas.
Honorable Sam George mentioned that are designated judges to deal with some of these subjects. But the other critical thing is that intelligence gathering, the direct access to the information is not the only way the intelligence is gathered. So usually before even an interception request is made, they would perhaps have had sufficient knowledge on generally what is going on regarding the subject and keeping tabs on the subject. So I think for now, that structure works, given that there's already a designated guy to take charge of it, and also the fact that intelligence gathering ranges a wide range of things. So there's easy ways to find out what is happening with the person.
Thank you. So on that note, I think I'd like to thank all the panel. This is a wonderful panel. They've done an excellent job to the topic of, privacy and security, or national security. Which one, which is the best thing to do? And I hope you can make all your decisions from there. Thank you very much, Honorable Sam George, for taking time away from all your busy schedules to be here. Prof, we are grateful for your time. Kuku, excellent job, and thank you very much. Emmanuel and Nicholas, we're grateful for your time. And on that note, I say thank you for the audience for staying with us, and we'll hand over for the next session. Thank you.
Please, a round of applause once more. Our panelists have done so well. They've done it so much good. We thank you so much, Mr. Eric Akumia, Professor Kester, Honorable Samuel Nate George, and all the panelists here. We thank you so much. Is protecting the digitized society, the role of stakeholders. Protecting the digitized society, the role of stakeholders. And to help us do that is Mr. Marcus Adome. He will be the moderator for this session. So Mr. Marcus, respectfully, we would like you to come up. And we also have the following panel members, or panelists, who will help us digest this topic. We have Mr. Blay Abu Safian. He is the CEO, Invectech Global. Mr. Abu Safian, he's the CEO of Invectech Global. We also have Mr. Selby Abraham. He is the ISOC Ghana Chair for Programs and Communications Committee. We also have Mr. Yazid Akano. He is the ICANN Technical Engagement Specialist for the Middle East session. Respectfully, if you are here, kindly join us. We also have Mr. Kweku Saponmenu. He's the National Computer Emergency Response Team coming from CERT Ghana, or CERT GH. Please, if you are here, kindly join us. Thank you. We also have Mr. Paul Saffo. He is a Systems Analyst, Head of ICT Directorate, Cape Coast Technical University. We have him on Zoom, and so he's already here. Okay, so Mr. Marcus Adome. Please, respectfully, we have our rep from NITA. So please, if you kindly join us. Shall we give applause, please? Shall we give them a round of applause? Thank you. Mr. Adome, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. My name is Marcus Adome, and I'm going to moderate this panel. I recall in 1995, when I started a journey of cryptography, things were not liberal like the way they are today. I remember there's a book I wanted to buy from the United States of America. That's Applied Cryptography. At that time, there was no way you can get it if you're not a US citizen, and they were not exporting it. Later, the second edition was modified a little bit, simply because of its content. So they are afraid that releasing the first edition the way it was, when it was in the hands of the terrorists and the bad guys, they may harm the interests of the United States of America. So at that time, I was working seriously with the internet. And I remember I was going to NCS, and Mr. Akumia, who was the one who introduced me to the internet, was helping me to go through the internet using the search engine called AltaVista. Well, all of us, we have a role to play. In our various sector of activities, we have privacy to protect. And in this panel, I will ask everybody what they are doing. I'll start with Abu and then Selby to tell us what they are doing in their business, how they are ensuring privacy, and the impacts of using weak cryptography on their business. From there, I'll go to Paul, who is in the academia, to tell us what they are doing there to ensure privacy through training, of course. And then I'll come to Solomon to tell us what government is doing. You know, government in general, they are, or the regulators, they are don't. But the academia is do. So we hear from the government what they don't want us, why they don't want us to use strong cryptography, for what is happening in Ghana, and then the way we can go about it to ensure privacy. That's our priority. Thank you. So I'll hand over to Abu.
Thank you for inviting me to join this great co-panel. I'm Blair Abu Safian, the CEO of Invitec Global, which is a cybersecurity firm, and we train people in cybersecurity, mainly offensive security. Okay, so personally, I break anything I find my hands on. Thus, I get paid to break into organization and check its security so that the organization can understand the security aspect of their business. Okay. Now, when we look at encryption in our organization, let's say, since we are an institution, people register to our organization, we collect data. So in our organization, since we are under the data protection law, we are registered, we make sure that every data we have our hands on are being protected in a rightful manner. This way, we are trying to prevent bad actors or attackers like, let me say, ourselves, from having their hands on the data we collect. So, to make it short, it's always important to have our data, that's our sensitive data, protected, so that in case we lose it or someone compromises our system or our organization, they cannot be able to use our data. It becomes useless to them because our data is being encrypted. So let's say you break into our organization, we have sensitive data. You get them, and then you try to exfiltrate or try to send it from our organization to your end. Now you have it, it's encrypted. What do you use it for? You can't use it for anything again, it becomes useless. In that case, encryption makes our data safe, and this helps in protecting the confidentiality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a question for you before I go to Shelby. You know, you are saying you are authorized to collect data and to do your investigation. Can you tell us, for the sake of our younger ones, how you protect our data? Which mechanism have you put in place? Policy-wise or technology-wise?
Okay, as I stated, we are a training organization, and also we render cybersecurity services. So anytime we collect the data is in different levels. So let's say we take the general public data, we make sure that we set policies in place. So not everyone has equal access to those data. The data is only accessible to high-end user of the organization. For instance, I'm the CEO. I have access to all the data, and making sure that the other employees in the organization doesn't have equal rights in accessing those data.
Yeah, thank you very much. But I also add, in some heavens, people use software encryption tools like GNU-PG, I don't know whether you know about it, to encrypt data they receive on their hard disk. And that's the technology used by the bad guys to develop ransomware to encrypt the boot sector of your hard disk. Now, Selby, in the same line, can you tell us about what you are doing and then how you ensure privacy? Yeah, because it's important for us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marcus. In the first place, to come to the layman's view, I'm Selby Abraham. I've been working with Data Protection Commission for some time. I am data protection and privacy advocate. I also speak about data protection and privacy on media and other events. I am currently also working on a data protection privacy section with the Global IGF. What we have to first tackle is that if we say encryption to the layman in terms of the privacy, what does it mean? Now, the reason why we say encryption and privacy is that it comes with that now that we're moving on digital aspect of the world, we have to get data. The data means personal data. Your information is going online, is going interconnected on computer systems. You register, you fill the forms online and other stuff. These are the data that we are talking about, and other sensitive and insensitive data. Now, it has become that this data must be protected. It has to be encrypted. Now, let's take it this way. That is why we have the Privacy Policy Act, the Data Protection Act, and what we are set up is that every organization who processes, collects personal data must be ensured that the privacy of the individual is protected, and it is in the Act, as it says. Now, when we come into this perspective with data protection, it means that if I give my information out to a hospital, the hospital don't need to send my information to my school, since you are a student here. If your students have a list, if your class rep have a list of your contact, he shouldn't share the list to any other person who comes from outside and say that I need contact of these students, so give it to me. No. We must seek consent. And the Data Privacy Policy Act ensures that we must seek consent for individuals. We are data subjects. When you say data subject, your information. And the Data Privacy Act protects a living data. Someone who is dead is not part. What we are doing is that we do advocacy. We tell people, that's a part that you are here, that your personal data is valuable. Check that the institution who is collecting your personal data, how safety is it? How does the institution ensure to protect your privacy? Because your information is with you. And let's also see this. Many of us use WhatsApp, right? There was a scenario whereby WhatsApp said that we are going to remove encryption of data, so your data will be shared by third party. People started moving to Signal because people advocate that Signal is in protecting them. And WhatsApp later came back to put an encryption on that. Now, that encryption is called end-to-end encryption. It makes sure that no third party have access to your chat information. And this is what we ensure that the technical committee, the civil society organization who are collecting and processing people's personal data have to ensure that there is a privacy into that. The privacy means that they shouldn't leave your information anywhere for someone who is not authorized to come and say it. And there are laws integrated into that, which people are always finding when they breach. When you submit your CV to a company, the company don't need to put your CV anywhere because it contains your personal information. Your school, they shouldn't publish your name alongside other gender, your health issues online just like that, or paste it on a wall. It has to have some certain privacy. Let's take our banking card and password. It's an encrypted. We have hashed encryption, whereby when you are entering your password, you don't need to see it. And this is the actual fact that I will, when we go to the next session, I will dive through, because most of the mobile money pins that we enter, it has to be hashed so that someone don't need to see it. And these are the role that the stakeholders have to do. So this is the section now. Thank you, Marcus, for giving me the floor.
Well, you were talking about the Data Protection Act, which is mandatory for everybody to, organizations, but I'm a technology person. How do we implement some of the aspects of the Data Protection Act in the virtual world? Okay. Can you touch it a little bit?
Okay, so if we see this, we all know website, right? Now, when you visit on website, the Data Protection Act in such that currently IP address, example like this 192.168.0, which identifies your device when you connect online, has been integrated to be a personal data because it identifies someone who is connected somewhere. Now, when you visit a website, the website, some automatically captures your IP address, your cookies and other stuff. They pick your data. You go to a website, you fill a form. Ensure that this is what we are ensuring, that every website, every institution who collects personal data have privacy policy. Now, when you go to a website like accept cookies, don't accept. They have a document, their privacy policy. It states that we will take your name, email, and age to do this. We will not share from marketing services. So if that organization, now you accept the privacy policy when you are signing on to forms and other stuff online, we must ensure that we read that policies well. It states clearly what the company is doing to protect your privacy. So these are some of the documents. Institution makes sure ensures that we have data protection impact assessment, which shows the various tools they are using to secure your data. So this is the form of how we can see the privacy protection in the real world and how it works.
Thank you. As you know, when you go to the web on the net, you are browsing. They say policy. I don't read it. Just click OK, and then we move on. I think we need education there. So it's taking us to Paul, who is our virtual friend, far away from us, and to ask him the role of the academia. I don't want to generalize it in Ghana, but just focus with his university. How are you, which kind of training have you put in place securing privacy, or that will lead to ensuring privacy of Ghanaians? Thank you, Prof. Paul.
Muted. Paul, you are muted.
Please.
Paul, you are muted.
Okay, well.
All right, thank you. The host was the one that was on meeting me, yeah. All right, at the academia side, we have some courses in place that are geared towards training these individuals so that they will be in a position to get the skills so that they can protect and also educate the general people, the general public, on how to protect themselves, or also how to protect the data that has been entrusted in their care. You realize that we have these bad actors, or what people may call hackers. As you have the data, now we share the data. You may have a branch or whatever, partners you may have. You need to give them access to your data. And when this data is in transit, it is expected that these hackers may intercept this data. And so you use this encryption so that even when they are able to intercept, they might not understand how it works. And so we have programs in places to train people on this cybersecurity and data protection and network security. So for instance, at Cape Coast Technical University, we have a center called Cybersecurity Center. You don't even need to be one of the undergraduate students. Even after high school, or the fact that you can read and write, you can sign on to that program where we prepare you to get your skills. And then at the end of the day, you get certification from that. So most of the universities have all these courses from Cisco and CompTIA and Cyber Ghana, and we train people on how to acquire all these skills so that they can protect their data and then the data of the organization as well.
Thank you very much. Well, you were talking about some of the programs you're having, but I would like to find out, do you have some practical training in terms of encrypting personal data on on machines? But I'm saying this because I know a bit of PGP. I know what you can do. GNU PG, which is the open source of version of PGP. Please, can you tell us a little about how you go about ensuring privacy through training? Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Like you said, there's a training from Cisco. As a standard, we have Cisco Networking Academy at our end there. And you know Cisco Networking Academy is about what? Competence-based or hands-on. We have the routers and then the switches and all those, appliances that you have your hands on. Also, we have virtualization, what we call packet tracer. So if you don't use the physical routers and switches, there's what we call virtualization or simulation. We use simulation in the form of packet tracer so that we can give you lab work and you use your packet tracer to practice all this we are teaching you in the form of encryption, how to secure, how to provide firewall, how to do access control, and so on. So we have all these things in place. Thank you.
Now we are moving from the academia to the government, our big brother, the one who spoon feed us. And you know, governments, most of their philosophy is don't. Well, we know that in Ghana, you are allowed to use digital signature. It is in the Electronic Transaction Act. We have the Data Protection Act, which is also recommending privacy. Privacy is implemented through use encryption. Now, honestly, I don't know much about what the kind of policies or the measures put in place by the government. Can you elaborate on that aspect for us? And then from there, you go to the rule that says no. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcus. I think that the very moment we have taken the decision to digitalize our economy, the responsibility also lies on us to make sure that we provide the needed framework to protect the ecosystem as a whole. This comes in various layers. You can look at the policy, the laws, and that. You can also look at the technology aspect, having the right technology in place. Then you can look at the aspect of the people, that is the training and the human resource, the capacity building and stuff like that that you need across the ecosystem to make sure that you are having the right environment, the right framework to make sure that the environment is, that ecosystem is safe. I think across government, as Honorable Sam George said, Ghana has not done bad. When we interact with our colleagues in the sub-region, you find out that as much as we think there is more to be done, Ghana is doing well. We have very good laws, we have very good regulations and institutions playing at the policy level. When we come to technology, I think that we're also not doing bad. Within government, we can say, when you talk about the digitalization, think about it in the form that there is a lot of digitalization also happening in the public sector. And there's a lot of dependency, even when you look at the private sector and the public sector. Take, for instance, the national ID. If the national ID system fails, we can imagine the kind of chaos that we will have in this country.
So what we are doing within government is trying to foster collaboration between the various regulators. You have data protection in there, you have cyber security in there, you have NITA in there, with a whole other regulators within that space. Some of their roles actually overlap, and then sometimes if you are not careful, instead of them collaborating, they are rather fighting as to who is doing what and who is doing that. So I think the ministry is doing a very good job trying to get these people to collaborate. You have, as at now, almost all our trading aspect of our lives is being done on a digital platform. There comes in the issue of e-commerce. I mean, it's also a big issue out there. We are now working, putting the necessary regulations across for the e-commerce. I think even yesterday there was a stakeholder engagement for e-commerce to try and then make sure that the right laws and regulations are being passed to protect that space. Government, what has done again is have deployed the PKI infrastructure route. The PKI, that's the public key infrastructure, and it's also still encryption. The route has been deployed within government, and government has registered with all the needed international bodies so far as our route PKI is concerned. What government is doing right now is certifying a number of certificate authorities to both within the private and public sector, so that they can provide the service to businesses, citizens, the needed encryption services that are required to protect their space. Online services, your devices, for instance, that your devices can be encrypted, data on it and data that is in transit and all that. So we are also putting together some kind of frameworks, especially for the public sector institutions that handle critical infrastructure in collaboration with what you call Cybersecurity Authority data protection, to make sure that organizations like what you call National ID, GRA, and the rest, the kind of systems that they have, they are not just putting technology in place, but even the way they operate the systems is per international standard. You can have the encryption in place. If you have a silly engineer within your environment, it's a risk. You can have your encryption, whatever, in place. If your protocols and your SOPs that you have is not up to scratch, it's still a big risk. So we need to look at that whole end-to-end cycle to make sure that both the people, the technology, the processes are all being structured in a way that it protects not just the citizens, the businesses, and the ecosystem in general. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Before we come to what we are not supposed to do, you mentioned an acronym, PKI. You know, one of my brothers there was asking me, you know, I have a direct link with him. He's saying, what is PKI? Can you explain it a little bit for them to understand it and how we can use it?
Okay, so the PKI stands for Public Key Infrastructure. It's some form of, it's one of the forms of encryption. What the PKI does is that it uses encryption to protect data, in storage and data in transit. Now, what PKI does is that it uses the what do you call public and private keys. So it will generate a key for each identity that it is dealing with. One key is public, one key is private. The public ones are put in the public domain, and so if I am an entity that needs to be identified, I have my private key that I'm holding. I put my public key out there. Anybody can have access to my public key. Now, for you to interact with me, we need to do a handshake and verify that, yes, you are dealing with me. So you come with my private key, my public key, and then I give my private key. And then once they handshake and there is that alignment, they agree, it gives access, it opens the channel of communication to verify that, yes, you are dealing with the right person. So we are using this PKI to protect the public space. Talk about your NIA card, for instance, that you are using. It's being protected by the PKI. Currently, immigration have deployed their e-visa system. And so with the e-visa system, it's using the PKI to protect it. There are a lot of ways we can use the PKI system to, if we talk about even a lot of the certificate, talk about land title certificate, talk about birth and death certificate, all those sort of things. There are things that there is a lot of fake duplication. People are faking these kind of things. But if you use PKI to try and then develop digital signatures and you use it to sign this document, they become very difficult for people to fake them. So, and then take about websites. There are some times that you go onto some website, you think you are dealing with maybe Car Bank, but actually you are dealing with some cloned Car Bank that you are dealing with, Sakawa, and you will provide them with your information. But if you use PKI infrastructure to secure those space, when you log onto a Car Bank site, you know that you are secure, you are dealing with actually Car Bank. And then I keep on saying this, everybody in this room over here now has a digital image. Everybody. We are creating a digital image of everybody in this room. The very moment you have your phone, always you are going over there. So it is important that as at now, when you are online, your digital self is online, dealing with another digital entity or another digital person, there is a way to verify. Physically, if I see Francis, I can tell this is Francis. And so if somebody says I am Francis and I look at him and that is not Francis, I can tell. But virtually, how do I tell that this person saying I'm Francis or I am this is the person? It's only through some of these platforms, PKI infrastructure, that we can use to authenticate the actual virtual identity or digital identity of entities and people.
Thank you very much. There's another thing I wanted to add to that, that is CA, the Certificate Authority. You know, what it's talking about is a way to certify that, you know, when you go to office to have a passport issued, what does it mean? They put your picture there and then your name. So when the passport officer is signing your document, what does it mean? It means the picture in the passport or the name there is the one on the picture. Now, in the virtual world, we're talking about public key and private key. Public key is in the public domain. How will I be sure that this public key truly belongs to this person? So there are CA, Certificate Authority, who goes through the Certificate Authority, the PKI, to sign your certificate. You know, when I was giving my opening remark, we have digital signature, which is more secure. You cannot fake it. So he will sign digitally the public key to certify that XYZ, or this is the certificate of XYZ. So thank you very much. I'm sure by now some of you are getting scrambled with our ideas. So I'll give you some, 3, or should we go 5 questions? Okay, let's go 5 questions if things are not clear for you. Please don't forget that I don't want anybody to give me blows here, because I'm standing between your lunch and the question. So let's go quickly and then ask questions.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Wanda. So my question is, which of the policies that are in place to secure data deals with interoperability? So we know that different countries have their legislation when it comes to data protection. So which of them is in place that protects interoperability, where systems have to communicate with each other? That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, second question. Well, I think it's only one question. So I'll let, okay. Please mention your name, man.
Yes, thank you. My name is Francis. Well, my study area is more into ICT for development and more geared towards rural development in ICTs in rural development. And so my question is, when we talk about these protection of privacy and all these things in the digital space, even with the urbanized areas and with illiterates, it's difficult for us to even understand. As you said, mostly we go online, we see things, we just press OK. The question is, as stakeholders, what are we doing about the people in our rural areas and illiterates who unfortunately or fortunately are exposed to the digital society anyway, but have no clue as to what privacy or security is? What are the measures put in place for such people? Thank you.
Thank you. I think, well, dear panelists, in answering the question, give your closing remarks. Thank you.
All right.
Hello, my name is Daniel. So I would like you to shed a little bit more light on the concept of offensive cybersecurity, like how much goes into it. That's my question.
Okay, so I would like to address the first issue of interoperability. Within government right now, we have something that we call the interoperability framework. Government has developed what it calls the interoperability framework. And so this interoperability framework is a set of standards that has been adopted across government. And so for any government system that is trying to build any IT system, you are supposed to abide by the interoperability framework. So we don't tell you that buy this particular hardware, buy this particular software, buy this security system. We tell you that if you are buying a hardware, it should meet these basic interoperable standards. If you are buying this software, it should meet these interoperable standards. And so if you're a government agency and you are rolling out any system and it does not meet that, then we will not give you the authorization to go ahead. So almost every kind of government tender that is going out, you find out that we have reference being made to these documentations for the developers of those platforms to pay attention and make sure that their systems are abiding by those interoperability framework. The interoperability framework goes with what we also call the enterprise architecture document for government systems, and that one also is a set of standards that defines how government systems should be rolled out, should be built, and stuff like that. Now we make it public because we know that private sector systems are also supposed to interface with government systems. And so if you're private sector and then now you need to have systems that will interface with government systems, then of course you also have to have those kind of things in perspective for you to know. Probably we need to do more awareness for people to know so that they can work according to that. Coming to what Francis talked about, that is one of the digital divide issues that we currently have, that we think that we need to, government is doing something in that space, private sector is doing something, but look, it's not enough. There is still a lot to be done. And that comes to the call I made with ISOC, that please, let's figure out some of the areas we can collaborate to see how we can address some of the challenges within this space, because government alone cannot do it. Some of your programs that we can roll out there can be geared towards this area, and then we can. It's the divide in Africa in government in terms of digital divide is so huge that we need a lot of resources, a lot of effort to try and then make some meaningful mileage within there. So the call still stands. Please, after this, engage us more. Let's see what we can do. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. To address Francis' question as well. When we say that this theme section, we realize that we are protecting the digitized society, the role of the stakeholders. Now let's get it. Who are the stakeholders? You and I are part of the stakeholder group. The civil society, the technical community, the government, academia, everyone is involved. Now, let's come into this section. We see that the Data Protection Commission ensures that institutions are compliant. They protect the privacy of individual. With the lay people who know whether this is right or wrong, the regulator ensures that every institution collecting personal data have to protect the privacy of it. Now, it comes back to us, individual. We are also stakeholders. We create awareness. We tell people what the actual issue is. We tell, but it doesn't reach far. Now you can become an agent to transmit that information. Now this is what I want to add to my wrap-up is that we have come here to learn. Let's use this opportunity to educate people, as he said. Now, with this global issue, it's going on around. When you are in WhatsApp group, you realize that someone will just bash in through, put unnecessary information, pay this, pay this. Now, this section, I'm urging everyone here that try and go and do, even on WhatsApp, Facebook, two-step verification. When you are able to do that, help your friend to also do the two-step verification. If we are able to connect and help each other to encrypt ourselves, to secure ourselves, I think we'll have a safe community. We'll also transmit information to them. And this comes as a responsibility of us as stakeholders. Since we are students, our parents are in the house. So we must also try to learn something to teach them. We must also try to protect their privacy since we know the right. When you go to a hospital with your mother or your father and they ask for information, try to prove, what are you using this information for? If you say that my health data and you need my bank account, what do you need my bank account details for? These are the kind of awareness and information that we can learn. So then don't just go to TikTok and be watching videos and other stuff. It's also important, but try to also learn, what is this? How can I do this? When we are able to do that, we can also discern the information to our communities. Thank you very much.
Okay. The gentleman down there asked, what goes into offensive security? I'll give 3 points. 1 is ethics, 2, time, and 3, skills. Ethics, to be an offensive professional, to be an offensive professional, your role is to break into any organization you are tasked with. So you should have that code of conduct that, okay, since you are being presented with an organization to break into, you are not going to disclose any information to any third party. You are going to follow whatever is in scope of that engagement. That's under the ethics. 2, your time. Before you get into offensive security, you need much time. You have to practice a lot, because offensive security is not about theory stuffs. It's about practical stuffs. In my case, when I started, I was practicing in total 20 hours per day. Why? Because I had my school time from, let's say, 8 o'clock to 3, 4, like sometimes 2 there. Then I'll practice till 4 o'clock done. Exactly in the morning around 8 o'clock, I have to go to class again. So meaning you have 4 hours to rest. So it all depends on you. If you know what or where you want to get to, you have to put in much time and effort. 3 is the skills. You have to practice. Practice makes man what? Perfect. So the more you practice, the more you learn, the more you know, and then you can be a professional.
Yeah, maybe
maybe the skills aspect. Can you elaborate which kind of skills, or is it in networking? In networking, do you have to know the TCP/IP protocols? And then, you know, well, explain it a little bit without confusing them.
So when you want to get into offensive security, I'll advise you abreast yourself with networking skills. You have to be good with networking. 2, you have to be good with cryptography. Cryptography, steganography, you have to be good in them. You also have to upgrade your programming language. So the language, that's Python, Bash, and let's say Perl. These languages, you have to know them. And then you should have some kind of OSINT knowledge. That's how to gather information about your target, what we put out there as internet users. The internet has more users now, and then we don't even care about whatever we post out there. So as an offensive expert, you should be able to leverage these weaknesses in humans. That's they posting their pictures or their locations on the internet. You should be able to chain all those informations to launch your attack, but you should be careful.
Thank you very much. Is Paul online? Paul, is he online? Okay. Thank you very much. But the issue is national security and privacy. I'll give my opinion in this as my closing remark. You know, if we need to secure ourselves, I'm of the view that we can go to the 4056 bits encryption key, or if you can go beyond that. I'm confusing you, so I'm inviting you to go and read around those areas. So let's go wherever we want to go to, but at the same time, those authorized to do national security, we should empower them through the cryptanalysis without going through forcing anybody to get information in terms of national security. When it becomes critical, we can go through the courts and then get information. But I'm rather of the view that we should empower technically, through mathematics, our national security to do their investigation. If you recall, there was an incident in the US, and then DOJ wanted, FBI wanted data on the guy's iPhone. Apple refused, but they say they will find their way out. Well, I heard that they didn't go to court, but they broke the guy's phone through cryptanalysis, and they got the information. So I think that's the way we should go. On this note, I would like to thank you very much for your contribution. You are great guys. May God bless you. Thank you. Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We can do better. Let's clap for them.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Adome, Mr. Marcus, and then our able team, the panelists, for helping us through this second session of ours. Can we give them a round of applause again, if you may? It is time for another important Please, respectfully, the panelists, if you could kindly come forward so we can take a group picture. That's for our records. The panelists, if you could kindly come forward for a group picture. Okay, so as that is going on, We have come to another session, which is also very important for us. It has to do with the induction ceremony of the various executives and the committee members of ISOC Ghana chapter.
Good afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed. We are here for another section of the program, a very important one for the Internet Society. It is a very big organization. I mean, it's a global organization that has chapters. And then within every chapter, at least we have the opportunity of sort of putting some of the governance structure together. And as executives, normally we hold elections for positions of president, vice president, secretary, and financial controller. And thankfully, elections were held, and we were elected. Later on, we decided that for our term of office, we would like to involve a lot of people because this work is voluntary and we want to cover the whole of Ghana. Therefore, we put together committees and regional representatives. So today, we are going to induct these persons who were carefully selected, though it's a voluntary activity. They were carefully selected through a very rigorous interview process. Okay, so this afternoon, I would want to take the honor of calling, if they are present, to come forward and then at least be in front of these seats. All the committee members, committee chairs, regional representatives that are present. We have about 8 committees, and they are the Research and Education Committee, the Policy and Advocacy Committee, the Technical and Projects Committee, the Programs and Communications Committee, the Women and Youth Committee, Climate Change and Emerging Technology Committee. We have the Emergency Telecommunications Committee, and the Fundraising and Finance Committee. Please, if you are members of any of these committees, kindly move forward for all of us to note you. We also have, thank you. So I would want the chair of the committees to take a seat, the chairpersons to take a seat, so that we are able to induct. Please sit in front, don't go back. Thank you. We're going to first induct all the committee members. Chairs. Just show by hand if you're a member of the committee so that people will know exactly where you are going to serve. The Research and Education Committee. This is the team that is going to make sure that at all times we are abreast and we have the most current data available, and also make sure that a lot of our publications will go out, especially within this term. Thank you. We also have the Policy and Advocacy Committee by hand. Thank you. These gentlemen will make sure that our bylaws, everything that we have to do is currently made, and then also connect with the policymen, that is parliamentarians. Thank you. We have the Technical and Project Committee. Great. So these are the technical guys, making sure that even if advocacy needs some training, they are going to do it. If research and education needs technical assistance, these are the men we need on the ground. We are grateful. And we have the Programs and Communication Committee. Their duty, thank you very much. Their duty is to propel ISOC Ghana chapter globally, meaning that you should finish the work of Ghana and then move out. And we are grateful for the daily publication, Twitter, Facebook. In fact, you should see everything about ISOC every day on your social media. And then we have the Women and Youth Committee. Thank you. So I'm sure somebody whispered in my ear, we didn't see any woman on the panel. Yes, so these are the women going to champion and make sure that everywhere we are, the women will be visible, and then we want the young men to also be visible. We are grateful. We have the Climate Change and Emerging Technology Committee. Wow. Wow. Thank you very much. Whilst during the session, that tells you I was listening. Whilst during the session, some of the people were saying some of the courses that we're taking, but you know, it's different studying and different practicing. So we are the men on the ground who make sure that things that have to deal with climate change and emerging technology are handled. We have the Emergency Telecommunications Committee. Thank you. Thank you. Now we have the floods all over the place. Okay, so we have the committee members online. They make sure they've joined since they are being inducted. Now that we have the floods all over the place, some sections, especially in the north, are being cut off in terms of internet. So these are the team going to handle those sections, making sure that they have internet access, whether we have floods, we have fire, any disaster. Are we not a formidable, So you see, you don't have to wait for government. We have to cause the change from somewhere. Okay, so we also have the Fundraising and Finance Committee. The finance people, they don't like attention. It's all right. It's fine. We are grateful. So, gentlemen and ladies, you're going to be inducted, and you're going to...
All right, thank you, the Board Vice. So, at this point, we're going to say the oath of office as the new executive. So, you repeat these words after me. When I say I, you mention your name and you continue. So, I affirm that I will support the bylaws of the Internet Society Ghana chapter, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform the duties of the office. And you mention your office. And that I will conduct myself with integrity, according to the bylaws, and to the best of my abilities. So help me God. So, by the power vested in me as the president of the Internet Society Ghana chapter, are inducted into the office of the various committees to serve for the good of the society, to promote the vision of the Internet Society. So congratulations. Thank you. So I will call on Mr. Akomia and Mr. Marcus to give them a right hand of fellowship as they are about to take their seats. And any past executive or vice who is also here, I will also ask that they also give them right hand of fellowship. Thank you. So can we take a photo quickly? Photographer. Oh, please give it up to them. Thank you so much. We can do better. Please give it up to them. Okay. So before I give a call on the various chairs of the committees, we have a very special guest here who is in the person of Victor Ndonang. I will allow him to say a few words. He was supposed to join us early, but we're cut down from the internet, so thank God we are back. So I want to give Victor the platform to say a word. Victor. Please, can you hear us? Okay, thank you. All right, Victor, if you can hear us, please, you can speak. You're muted now.
Great, thank you. You can hear me too. Can you hear me? Great. It is a great pleasure to join you remotely. I've been in Ghana, so it's always a kind of missing your place when I join any of your events virtually. So congratulations for extending the reach of the Internet Society Ghana chapter. I will start by congratulating the leadership for that vision on making sure that the Internet Society Ghana chapter goes beyond the capital city of Accra and reach all the regions of Ghana. Our vision is very simple. The internet is for everyone. And I'm really happy to see that the Internet Society Ghana chapter is embracing that vision and making sure that the internet reach everyone in Ghana. And this means bringing the Internet Society Ghana chapter activities to to everyone, to all the people in Ghana. So congratulations to all the new incoming representative for all the region in Ghana. I look forward to truly working with you all to promote our shared vision of a globally connected, a secure and trustworthy internet for everyone. So congratulations to everyone, and I will be listening, and if I have something else to add, I will add it later. So thank you for giving me the floor.
Thank you, Victor. I will now call on the heads of the various committees to please come upstage as we induct them into office. Okay, so you say these words after me. Please, we can't hear you. I affirm that I will support the bylaws of the Internet Society Ghana chapter, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties of the office of and that I'll conduct myself with integrity according to the bylaws to the best of my abilities. So help me God. Okay, so we'll put the sash around you, symbol of authority. So I will call on Prof. Sani to help me do this honors. Can you give that to him? So, okay, so before I infer the various position on them, I would want to mention their names and their various offices they are occupying so that we can know them as such. First on my list for the Research and Education Committee, we have Professor Adeboyo Adeyoke. Thanks to the internet, he's joining us remotely. He's online, so can you give it up to him? We have Mr. Yusuf Amadou, who is the Chair for Policy and Advocacy. We have Mr. Francis Sarr Dito, who is the Chair for Technical and Projects. We have Mr. Abraham Fifi Selby, who is the Chair for Programs and Communications. We have Ms. Ernestina Teria, who is the Chair for Women and Youth. We have Mr. Maxwell Baganin, who is the Chair for Climate Change and Emerging Technology. We have Shadrach Ankra, who is the Chair for Emergency Telecommunication, who is also joining us remotely. He has a rep here. And finally, but not the least, we have Mr. Benedict Sego, who doubles as the Financial Controller and Chair for the Finance and Fundraising Committee. So, by the power vested in me as the President of the Internet Society Ghana chapter, I hereby induct you as chairs of the various committee. Congratulations. You may please take. Okay, so I'll again ask, beg of Prof. Sani, Mr. Komi, and Marcus to give them the right hand of fellowship as they are about to take their seat. So after we're done, we'll do photography. So the various committee members we'll do committee by committee too. Because of time, once you are done, we'll do a photography of each of the committees with your various chairs. Okay, so please, you can take your seat. Thanks so much. Congratulations. So finally, the very first of its kind it is a dream which is finally come to fruition, and we are very happy. The internet is for everyone. It's not just for those in Accra or the privileged communities, but those in the urban rural areas, which are very unreachable. At times, it's very difficult to want to host an event. I remember when we had to go to the Northern region for the Chapter 2 program. It was very difficult. I didn't know Francis, who was there to help us. It was quite difficult to reach someone. That was when we had a dream of getting people across the country. So if you want to do any project in any region, you have a rep to count on, and they can easily promote the work of the Internet Society. So at this point, I want to call upon all the regional reps to please come on stage. We have Moses Che Boafo for Ahafo region. We have Osei Menu for Ashanti region. We have Dr. Peter Piahene for Bono region. We have Albert Fojo Enchi for Bono East region. We have Ochedako Ade for Central region. We have Adam Nuru Dini for Eastern region. We have Emmanuel Gadasu for Greater Accra region. We have Abraham Nantoman for Northeast region. We have Abbas Abdul Wahab for Northern and Savannah region. We have Yara Frifa Efriye for Upper West region. We have Perry Kui for Upper East region. We have Emmanuel Mwen for Western North region. We have Timothy Sampson for Western region, and Adolf Sedem for Volta and Oti region. Thank you. So some of them are online. I think we have Bono East and other people online. If they're online, yes. I see Bono East, yes. If you can give us a wave, if you're online and you can hear us. Great. This is Albert Fojo Enchi for Bono East. And Ibrahim for Northeast region. They are joining us remotely. Dr. Piahene is also joining us remotely for Bono.
Gentlemen, we're going to have the oath of office, and you repeat after me. I affirm that I will support the bylaws of the Internet Society Ghana chapter, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties of the office. State your office. Nice. And that I will conduct myself with integrity, according to the bylaws, to the best of my ability. So help me God.
So at this point, we'll call on Mr. Marcus Adomi to help us put a sash. Okay, so we'll call Mr. Komia to be the Moses of, to help him do it. Thank you. You'll be the Moses of Mr. Komia. Thank you. Oh, please give it up to them. They've done well. They've done well. Okay, so at this juncture, by the power vested in me as the president of the Internet Society Ghana chapter, I induct you into the office of the various regions of the country, and I pray that this dream will come to fruition, and you, with the best of your ability, as you've sworn the oaths, that you promote the good news of the Internet Society and help connect the unreached communities. Thank you and congratulations. All right, so thank you so much. You can take your seats. Okay, so before we leave the stage, we can't leave here without giving a chance to one man who has been very instrumental to the launch of internet in Ghana, Prof. Sani. I want to give him the chance to say some few words because we really miss his voice. One of the pioneers of the internet in Ghana. We've missed your voice so much, sir, so would want you to please say some few words to us.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It just so happened that I was passing by I went for a meeting in Kempinski Hotel, and I said, oh, let me pass by my former workplace and see what is happening. Then upon reaching here, I saw Internet Society Ghana chapter, and I said, oh, what's happening? Let me come in and see. And lo and behold, had these young men and women coming together to celebrate the encryption day, right? And I remember in the early days of the internet, that was the early 1990s, when we took up the challenge to bring internet to Ghana and to the sub-region and to Africa as a whole. Little did we know that this was going to grow into a big establishment that is, you know, pervasive, and that is cutting across all spheres of our lives. The earlier days, what was more important was email, communication, right? How to communicate with the rest of the world. And thanks to the father of internet in Africa, Prof. Sani Kwenu, and the formidable team that he built, starting with the network computer systems, and the teams in the universities, University of Ghana, University of Cape Coast, and the other University of Science and Technology. Those days there were only 3 universities. Now we have 265 universities in Ghana. Do you know that? From 3 universities in those days. Now we have 265 universities. And do you know the bandwidth when we started internet in this country? 9.6 kilobits per second. Those were the early days of the dial-up. And you know how much it was costing? $100 for 9.6 kilobits per second. Now $100, can you imagine the bandwidth that you are going to get? Very huge. So we've come a long way. Indeed, we have come a long way. And thanks to all of you for all your efforts and contributions towards the development of internet. But internet, you know, is a double-edged sword. right? And that's not to say that you should not use it. It's just that you should use it responsibly. There are good sides and there are bad sides. And that in sync with what we are going to discuss, the day we are celebrating now. Why do we need encryption? We need encryption because the bad guys are out there. They want to eavesdrop, right? And hear what you are saying, see what you are sending, and do whatever. So that's the essence of encryption, right? And it is a technology that's worth celebrating. Because without encryption, God knows what would have been happening to us, right? So it's a day worth celebrating, and I commend the team that put this together to bring us all together to celebrate the Encryption Day. And on that note, I just want to say that let's use internet responsibly. Let's use internet. It's a huge resource, and it has come to be a destructive innovation. How many of you have seen a postal stamp before? How many of you have seen airmail card? How many of you have seen the postcard? Right? In those days, if you want to communicate with somebody, you needed to go to the post office, right? And buy, if you are sending it abroad, then you have to buy the airmail card. Okay? You buy the airmail card and you write your message on that card, right? And get a stamp on it and go and post it. And it will be delivered. If it is going to the US, if it's going to Europe and whatever it will be. But what has happened over the years? Nobody hears of airmail cards again because of email. The email technology has come to destroy, to kill that end. So that sends us a message that if you want to sustain our businesses, if you want to sustain whatever we are doing, we should continue researching and responding to emerging technologies. So looking back, what the Ghana Post should have been doing then was to adopt internet and try to see how they could leverage internet to sustain their business. But they didn't do that. So that's why they lost out in that respect. So, but to sustain the business, you have to continue innovating, you have to continue researching in order to sustain whatever you are doing. The emerging technologies, some of them will become destructive technologies, like Uber. What has Uber done to the taxis, right? So this is the kind of mindset that we should have, come out with new ideas and how to, to build on those ones and sustain. We call it the path dependency theory. Okay? How many of you have heard of Akasanuma? You are not born. Most of you were not born. How many of you have heard of Gold Star? Most of you were not born. But Akasanuma was a radio set, preset radio, built by and manufactured by Gihawk. And at that time, we had Gold Star, right? And where's Akasanuma? Akasanuma is dead and gone. And where is Gold Star? Gold Star has evolved into LG. That is, Gold Star of yesteryears is now LG. And where is Akasanuma? It's gone. So that's a big challenge to us, to we Ghanaians, to we Africans. Let's build on what we have. Right? Where is Sanyo? Gone. Right? So that's what we call the path dependency theory. Build on your earlier competencies. Right? So from the Gold Star Radio and what a TV, that's why it has evolved. They are building the earlier competencies to develop LG now, the flat screens, the smart TVs and what have you. Right? So that is what we need to do. And we also have to build our dynamic capabilities. And you can only build your dynamic capabilities through R&D. And that's why we are not doing much, right? So we need to go back and pick up the pieces so that we can sustain our development, our competition. I wouldn't go, if you want to talk too much, I'll just leave it on this note and said, to encourage you and congratulate you and for this event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those inspiring words. Looks like most of us are just babies. It looks like we have a lot to learn. So it's a wake-up call for all of us. We have to build on what we have so that we can innovate, because internet revolves over time, evolves. So we have to make sure we improve so that we don't lose what we have, but improve upon it as the time changes. Thank you. All too soon we come into the end of the induction ceremony, and we're so grateful. So if you look at behind us, we have wonderful pull-ups here. So these are one of the souvenirs that will be taken to the various regions. So if I'm traveling to any region, I don't have to carry a pull-up along. So we have for all the various regions, every regional rep will have a pull-up and a t-shirt and some souvenirs with them. So once you are going to their country, the minister of that region, they are in charge. So we just go empty and they can host us. So at this point, I want to thank you so much for the time and your cooperation. So congratulations for the inducted once again. So, MC, over to you.
Hello. Thank you very much, Press. Thank you everyone for being part of this wonderful program. There are two announcements that we have to take note. There's going to be an advocacy collaboration between Ghana and Nigeria on the 25th of October, that's Tuesday, between 2 and 4, and the theme being becoming an internet advocate. And this is virtual, so anybody and everybody can, you can just go to internetsociety.org/get-involved/advocate and then be part of it. Also, the Ghana DNS Forum will be held on Thursday, that's Tuesday, Thursday, and it will be at the same venue too, so take note of that. These are the two announcements. Now, as we are departing, all our SHS students that are here, for your refreshment, as soon as you get out of the room, take your left, walk through the corridor, you meet a beautiful lady, and we'll take you there. For the rest of us, we will get exit and then take a ride, and then we also meet our refreshment team. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful time having all of you. Sorry for the delay, and always remember that the internet is for you and me. Thank you. Bye.